Hello and welcome to Marvel Vision Face to Face. Derek has got his phone in his hand already. He's not even going to be engaging in discussion with me.
Nope.
He's already checking his email.
This whole episode, I'm just going to be looking at my phone. And he's going to talk the whole time. Oh, there's Gus.
We are here at my house right now. Derek is in town for a couple of days. And so we're going to sit down and do this episode of Marvel Vision with us right here as people alongside each other. How was your flight?
It was good. I sat alone. I had the whole aisle to myself.
Nice.
So that was pretty sweet.
Good.
And I watched Aaron Brockovich and Dungeons and Dragons.
How many times have you seen Dungeons and Dragons now?
I think this is the third time. Like, I saw it in the theater. I think I watched it when it first hit, was it on Paramount Plus or whatever? Peacock, whichever one it's on. And then on the plane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. While you were flying, I went to Universal Studios.
Yes.
And I rode the Harry Potter ride, and I threw up in my mouth on the ride. So it's this ride, you're strapped in and you're hanging, and it's on a rail. So the rail's moving around. So it's a motion ride, but it's also real, like you're actually moving. And it mixes screens with actual props. So you'll go from a big screen where Harry and Hermione are flying in front of you and you're flying on a broom with them.
Yeah.
And then you'll spin around, and then there's a Dementor right there. There's an actual thing. Well, the screens and the unbelievable amount of movement on the thing really fucked me up. And this is my second time riding it. The first time I rode it was like 8 years ago, and it made me unwell, but not that bad. But this time, 2 minutes into the ride, I was like, and I was like, oh, this is very fucking bad. This is very fucking bad. So I tried my best to keep my shit together. Closing my eyes didn't help. And I had ridden the ride, so I knew how long I still had. That was maybe the worst part.
Oh, that's terrible.
I was like super fucking aware of how much more time I had.
If I could just make it 5 more minutes.
So
if I could just hold it in.
But I had ridden it once, but it was a long time ago, which meant I didn't remember when the camera flashes. Because in all these rides, they take a picture of you. They want to sell it to you when you get off the ride. And I was not aware of when the camera was going to flash. The camera happened to flash just at the moment that my mouth filled with vomit, and I managed to swallow it back down. So I had to buy the picture because I have a mouthful of puke in this picture.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And all I was thinking, this is the second ride we rode, so I was like, oh man, I can't throw up on myself. I'm spending all day here. I can't be covered in vomit the whole day.
I hope you understand, when you die and we put together a memorial video, that's going to be the final photo.
I hope so.
Is you, and we'll just crop it close up on you, like holding in your vomit.
I hope so. And I posted this on socials, and I think people think it was like a bit, but it was not a bit. My mouth is legitimately full of puke in that picture. So, it was pretty...
That's gross.
Yeah, I went to Super Nintendo Land, though, too. That was kind of awesome. Yeah, it's small is the problem. Derek is mesmerized by the cat.
I just can't stop looking at Gus. He's just laying on his back.
Derek is totally mesmerized. Here, let's give the people at home all right, for those at home, that's Gus. He's sitting here watching us do this podcast.
He's pretending to ignore us.
Anyway, that's my messy house, man. That's my messy house. Welcome to my messy house. So Super Nintendo Land is great. It's really small, which is like a problem because it really is just one plaza, but it looks amazing in there.
Yeah. You
walk in, you come in through a sewer pipe, and it is like you are in the game. It is crazy, the amount of detail and the cool stuff. If you're going to Universal anyway, I recommend it. Yeah, I don't recommend going to Universal in general, but it's not great, man.
Back to the Future ride's like the greatest thing ever.
It hasn't been there for years.
I know, which is why I will never go again.
I've been there for years.
But I love that ride. I loved the Back to the Future ride.
Oh, my God.
My favorite thing.
So you're staying in a creepy hotel in Glendale.
Yes.
Tell the folks at home about your hotel.
When I booked the hotel, online it looked pretty nice. Not great, but pretty nice. And then we got there. It is not wheelchair accessible.
There's only stairs.
There's only stairs. Like you open the door and it's just a stairwell that's like 20, 30 stairs. And then you got to go up another like 20 stairs to get to the first floor. And then I was on the second floor, so there's more stairs. Not a big deal. But the place itself feels like a mix between an Italian grandmother's home and a funeral parlor. It's very uncomfortable. It's very weird. There's a lamp in my room. I don't know if you saw when you went in, because we didn't really look. I'll show it to you here. It looks like they took the Pope's hat and made a lamp out of it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Where is it?
It's called the mitre. Well, the meter, I don't know how you pronounce it. M-I-T-R-E is how you spell it. But I don't know how you pronounce it. Oh, wow. Show it to the folks at home.
Here it is. Can they see it?
Yeah, I can't see it. No, it's not gonna come across. It's not.
Yeah, it's just a white thing. It looks like it's just a floating thing right there. Yeah, but yeah, I'll put it on Blue Sky or whatever later. Yeah, it looks like the Pope's hat, and yeah, the hotel's weird. It's freezing in there too. It's very cold.
Oh, that's no good.
No.
Speaking of the fact that we're sitting here side by side on the couch doing this, if you're listening, that's why this sounds like shit.
Yeah.
Because we had two mics and we were trying to set it up so that we could use each as our own mic and like be pro, but we couldn't fucking make it work. It just was not working. So we have defaulted to the one mic program.
Also for the hotel, you need to use two different remotes to get the TV to work.
Wow.
Yes. So again, very much like an Italian grandmother's house.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
There's one remote turns it on and controls the volume. The other one you need for the channels, to change channels.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, you didn't pay that much for it, right?
Nope.
Oh, man. Okay, so we are here to talk about the first two episodes of Daredevil. But before we get to that, do we have any news this week?
We might.
Here comes Derek. Derek has one of them folding phones.
Yes.
Boop. Boop. Totally nuts.
I love it. Where'd my notes?
He's got a constant little crease in the center of his phone.
No, you can't see it.
I can definitely see it. It looks
like at that angle, but when you're looking at it straight on,
it looks like a bubble, like in like tape that's on your phone.
You can't see it when you look straight on.
He emailed himself some news here.
Yes. Joe Russo says that Robert Downey Jr. is researching and writing backstory and costume ideas for his Dr. Doom role. I feel like you shouldn't need to write any backstory or costume ideas because the character's been around for a long time. He's got a whole backstory and costume.
But this one can't have the same backstory, though.
No, I suppose not.
In a lot of ways, right? I mean, like he has to have some elements that are different.
I guess. But we'll see. So that's what our DJ is doing.
It seems like I mean, we don't know where Doom is coming from in Doomsday. Like, is he already on the MCU Earth, or is he from a different Earth? If he might be from an Earth that's having an incursion with our Earth. I
mean, he can't be from the MCU Earth, right?
You would think he couldn't be, but who
knows?
They're
like, are they going to pull? Oh my God, are they going to pull Barry Allen and be like, by the way, Tony had a secret twin brother this whole time that was raised by an evil family? Because that is one of the Mark Waid storylines in The Flash.
Well, that's not that far off from the comics, because in the comics, Tony discovered he was adopted.
Was that in the Ultimate Universe?
No, it was in the main universe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he discovered he was adopted. So there is, which doesn't make any sense, but I think I might have retconned it already, actually. So potentially that could actually be the case. That could legitimately be the case.
Yeah.
And it would have comic book origins on some level. I suspect he's from a different Earth, though. And within that context, I don't know if his Earth had a Fantastic Four, because Reed Richards as his college roommate is important to his larger backstory.
Yes.
So I guess we'll see what that means.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
meanwhile, Brad Winderbaum has said that both Deborah Ann Woll and Eldon, I don't know what his last name is, are going to be in Daredevil season 2. Seems
implausible. They're going to have flashbacks.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, if you're listening to this, one of those characters ain't making it out of the pre-credit sequence of this particular program. Which, by the way, we're not complaining about.
No.
I want everybody to know we are not complaining about that.
No. And then we've got Vin Diesel is teasing that they're going to do a Groot movie.
No, they're not.
Disney wants their Planet X, which some say is Marvel's most anticipated movie. The film where Groot returns to his home planet.
No, that's never happening. So when I was at Universal, I did the Universal Studio Tour, and part of the Universal Studio Tour is a Fast and Furious section, like where your tram gets like involved in a big chase, and Vin Diesel's in it. And I have never seen a person put less effort into a thing than Vin Diesel in this Studio Tour thing, and it is crazy.
I don't know. Let's not forget Oscar Isaac on Rise of the Resistance.
No, this is worse than that.
Really?
This is worse than that.
Wow.
It's worse than that to the point where you're like, wait, is this just a CGI figure and a person pretending to be him? He just stands there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's really nuts. Everybody else is like doing bits and shit. He's just standing there. It's very, very not good. He's in it with The Rock, and I wonder if that's the problem.
None of it makes sense to me because Fast and Furious is his career, and like he produces them. Like he's the reason they've made. How many have they made? 10 of them.
10 of them.
Like for him to not give
plus a spinoff,
it's shocking. I mean, I would get it if they were like, "Hey, do you want to do something for the spinoff?" And he was like, "No, I don't want to do that." But like his ride, he's definitely getting money for the ride and stuff.
Well, the thing that's really crazy is that like. Yeah, he's not against cashing in. That's the thing. He isn't one of these guys who's like, I think this ruins the integrity of the
Fast and Furious commercial during the Super Bowl for I forgot what it was for.
It's the last time we're going to see those characters on screen.
That is the end of the Fast and Furious franchise. Is them. They're like, oh, we should just chill out, and that's it. One of the crazy things from watching Dungeons and Dragons again is being like, oh, Michelle Rodriguez is a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
If she's not standing next to a piece of wood who just mumbles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is not happening. There's not going to be a Groot movie. Then there's Groot cartoons. And could there be like a Groot cartoon movie for the kiddies? Not impossible.
Yeah.
Not impossible.
Like more of those like Disney Plus shorts?
Yeah, like a movie version of that.
Yeah.
But that's it though.
Who knows?
What else we got?
We missed, since the last time we were on, the DC had a press conference thing.
And they had no information whatsoever.
They had some info. Nothing overly exciting.
Nothing worth having a press conference for.
I feel like the press conference was like to make sure as much press was going to be there when James Gunn was like, look, Rob Pattinson's not going to be our Batman. Like, I think that was the entire purpose of that. They were very frank about stuff, though, which is very interesting. I thought that they're going to go back and do a couple more reshoots for Superman. What was hinted at, heavily implied.
Okay.
That Gunn is also working on a mystery project. He would not say what it was, but he's already figured out what he's doing next. Brave and the Bold is in active development. There will be a Batman movie in 2027, no matter what. Take that for what you will. Paradise Lost, Booster Gold, and Swamp Thing remain in development. Booster Gold had a showrunner, and then the showrunner just kind of ghosted them.
Is that what they said?
Pretty much. They were like, yeah, we were working with somebody, and then they just stopped being interested and stopped talking to us.
Wow.
And everyone believes that was Danny McBride, because
that
was the theory way back, but who knows? And then Swamp Thing is whenever Mangold wants to make it, he can make it.
I imagine he's going to go to Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
And then Paradise Lost. We don't really know much about that one. Other than it's still being worked on. Creature Commando Season 2 is being worked on. We got our first look at Lanterns.
Must have pissed you off.
What's that?
Must have pissed you off.
Yeah, they're in the middle of the road. They're just wearing...
but they're in the middle of the road.
They're in the middle... Yeah. I started with that for a reason. They're in the middle of the road. They're just wearing regular clothes. It's not a very exciting shot. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, not very impressed by that. Clayface is going to production to this summer.
And they're going to have the makeup artist from Penguin working on it.
I saw that reported, but I didn't see it reported anywhere real.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know about that.
That seems pretty reasonable, though.
It does.
Like, he's done a bunch of DC stuff.
Yeah. They don't know if Dynamic Duo is going to be DCU or Elseworlds.
Okay. That seems like a thing that you would know walking in.
I think it's a thing of, like, we're going to tell the story about two different Robins. And, according to Gunn, it's like, it's a matter of, like, how do we think people will accept a puppet movie as part of the continuity. Is really what it comes down to. They announced 4 new family-friendly shows. My Adventures with Green Lantern is within the same universe as My Adventures with Superman. Starfire, DC Superpowers, and a live-action Crypto series of shorts.
Starfire is not family friendly.
Sure she is.
She's mostly nude.
I mean, she's been on Teen Titans Go for a generation. They made costumes for her where she's not mostly nude and
Fair
she's
enough.
a kid.
Okay, fair enough.
So,
fair enough.
Yeah, you can change costumes. I don't know if you
Yeah,
know that.
but like that's like part of her appeal.
It was, yeah. And and the Crypto, live action Crypto. They said that the Authority movie is very tough to figure out because of partly because The Boys is already kind of filling that space, and also they just don't. Some stuff has changed in what they want to do, and they don't know how the Authority would fit into it.
Okay.
Is
David Corenswet getting replaced as Superman?
Yes.
Our father had this question because he saw on the internet that David Corenswet was in an interview and somebody asked him about the next Superman movie and him coming back for more Superman stuff. And he said, well, if James Gunn wants to invite me back. And I said, I think he's just being polite. Like, I think he's just being humble.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure he's locked in for 9 movies or something like that.
I'm sure
like,
he is. Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be amazing if they replaced David Corenswet already.
That would be pretty wild. We're going back to Cavill. Matt Reeves has yet to submit the script for Batman Part 2.
Again, what I've heard is that he has really significant family shit going on. And
Yes, but they're supposed to start filming like at the end of the year.
Yeah, I know.
It's got to be.
My understanding is it's pretty intense.
Yeah. The Authority and Waller have had setbacks. Video games, maybe one day. And that's it. That's it.
For the James Gunn thing,
For the Gunn stuff. And that's it for the news. There was also a report. There are mixed reports, scoops of is the test screenings for Superman going well or not. One scooper says no. Another scooper says yes. So who knows? Here's my theory on that.
What's that?
One scooper knows somebody who went to a test screening and said, I didn't like it. And another scooper knows somebody else who went to a test screening and said, I did like it.
The thing is, I'm not convinced they're doing test screenings.
They are.
They are test screenings, not screenings for Gunn's hand-picked friends.
No, Gunn said they've done test screenings.
Oh, okay. Matthew Lillard has joined Daredevil Born Again Season 2.
Oh,
as Scooby.
There you go.
He's part of the new. Sorry, that's Shaggy.
Shaggy?
He's part of the team now. He's going to be a new investigator.
I mean, this is very interesting because that would then be a DC Marvel crossover.
Because Shaggy is now owned by DC, by Warner Brothers.
It's been owned by Warner Brothers for a very long time.
Yeah, but it was never really a DC thing, but now he is. Right?
They have an ongoing series where every issue is the Scooby Gang teaming up with different DC people.
That's what everybody needs.
Yeah.
That's what everybody needs.
I mean, it's not in continuity.
Russo said that RDJ as Doom was planned years ago.
No, it wasn't.
I know it wasn't because I know when they were calling his people to make this deal happen. Yeah. So I actually know that's not true. I mean, technically years ago, as in last year.
Last year, and when the movie comes out, it'll be 2 years.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so I guess that's it though. That's all we got, right? I'm looking here at the Reddit while we're talking, and yeah. All right. So we have any questions?
We do.
From the folks at home?
We do.
What do we got?
I don't know. Let's find out.
Well, yeah, it's your job. You should know.
I know. Well, I have to pull him up, goofball.
He's not ready. Do you see this? What I have to work with here? Do you see that this is the lack of professionalism I have to work with?
I want you to know, it took like an hour to get ready to record because he had to change his shoes.
You call me Mr. Rogers for changing my shoes.
He says, "There's like, you ready?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's putting on different shoes. I'm like, "What the? What's going on?"
I needed my light shoes.
Kyle from Baton Rouge asks, "What are the dropped MCU plot threads that you personally wished had continued?" Mine is probably Star Fox showing up as the singer of the Eternals to quickly be forgotten. Mine is everything in Eternals, just being essentially forgotten. I don't think we're ever going to see a follow-up on the end of Eternals.
Yeah, because that's funny because Celestials Coming to Judge the Earth is a pretty good Avengers movie.
Yeah.
And then instead they've gone, but I guess that they freaked out, so they went to Secret Wars and Doomsday because they freaked out so hard.
Yeah.
But that would have been a pretty great Avengers movie. But yeah, that is going to never get picked up again. I agree. We'll see some of those characters again. They'll bring back Kingo.
I imagine we'll see some of them in like Secret Wars, right?
Without a doubt, Secret Wars and some of those.
They'll be like, "Oh, we can kill a couple of them off to show that things are serious."
It's probably a good point.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Cersei. Yeah. Also, the blade whispering at the end of that movie will never get followed up on either. When Black Knight finds the sword and Blade is whispering in his ear, I'll never get. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, they don't have a ton of hanging story threads. I feel like. Am I crazy?
Peggy Carter, not Peggy.
She died. Sharon Carter.
Sharon Carter.
Yeah, but she went off to be the power broker. That's not.
But it's. I mean, it's just odd that nothing has gone that way. Like they did an entire Captain America movie, and nobody's like, "What's up with Sharon?"
Yeah, but she's not like a main character. So like, that's the kind of thing that happens in comics. Somebody goes off and does a thing, and then they show up again a year and a half later. I mean, like I don't mind that because. She's not like a question of what's happening to Sharon. We know she's a power broker and she's running around in Madripoor, giving people superpowers. Like we know it. Like to the end. Like I mean, do we need to see her again? I don't necessarily need to see her again. There's no questions I have about it. Maybe the question is it legit? Is she doing like an undercover operation or is she actually a bad guy for real?
Yeah, is
maybe the question. But other than that, and also I don't care about that. So that's the other problem with that particular thread. I don't care about it at all. What other threads are left that are dangling?
I don't know. This isn't a thread so much, but it is a thing that they've teased is what happened to Steve Rogers post Endgame. I mean, is he on the moon? Is he dead? Nobody knows.
Yeah, that is funny. That's because they haven't wanted to decide.
Yes.
That's fundamentally the answer. They haven't wanted to decide. And they don't know what they're going to do with Chris Evans when Chris Evans inevitably comes back. And is it just going to be Cap from another universe? Or is it going to be that they're going to de-age this Cap? Or what's it going to be?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the piece of it. I really do hope it's Hydra Cap in Secret Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I liked how mad people got in the comics, and I want to see them get that mad.
I mean, I feel like if Tony's going to be Dr. Doom, that's my guess is they're going to do like Evil Avengers.
Masters of Evil, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be Evil Cap, Evil Black Widow, that way Yelena has to fight her sister. You have that, right? And her and Hawkeye have to go fight an evil version of Natasha.
You could have Loki in the Thor role.
Yeah.
That's how you bring Loki back in Secret Wars. He's in the Thor role. That's like in your Evil Avengers. It's that. Yeah, that's not that bad. I mean, it's not great, but like, I mean, it's also not that bad.
That's how you get your, we need people who are going to excite the audience to come back.
Yeah, and you got your Hulk is already a bad guy. You keep Hawkeye as Ronin in that.
Do you do the Maestro for Hulk? So now he's got the big beard and stuff?
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about those leaked concept art.
Oh, no, we didn't.
For the which makes it look like Doctor Doom has taken over the world and the world is kind of medieval.
Yeah.
And
which is the second Secret Wars storyline, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
there is
fourth Secret Wars.
the Secret Wars, Secret Wars 2, Secret War, and then Secret Wars.
There's Secret Wars 3, which was a Fantastic Four annual.
Yeah, but that doesn't count. That's not really. I think it has to be the full series.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think you can call something. I can call something, Farewell to Arms 2. It doesn't mean that that's like an episode of like a TV show could be called that. It doesn't mean that it is that. Although that was a Beyonder focus story.
Yeah. That's where we learned he was a cosmic cube, which later on they're like, no.
They're like, no, that was really bad. That was stupid. That's the best thing about comics when they're like, oh, that was stupid. We should make that not be the case.
Yep.
But yeah, so there was concept art. It showed Black Panther, and it showed the Young Avengers.
Yeah.
It showed also some of the concept art was for other projects too, by the way. It showed Star-Lord hanging out with Vision. That may be for the Vision Quest show. It's hard to know.
They showed Franklin Richards.
But the Young Avengers hanging out with Star-Lord was the best because that had Dupe from Ecstatics, and that was really, really exciting. Who's a little green
potato guy,
booger potato man.
Yeah.
And he just says his name again and again and again. And I thought that was really exciting to me because in the case of Secret Wars, if you're going to do Battle World taken from different universes, you can take comic stuff and just throw it in there.
Yeah.
And that's like delightful. You don't have to set up Dupe as a member of an X team. He just came from an X world. And that's perfect because that's a great character. And it's a smart character to put into the movies because he's funny. He's cute-ish.
He's toyetic.
And they love the toyetic stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Although, you know what? That guy from Shang-Chi I thought was pretty toyetic, and he didn't go anywhere.
No, because he was just like a big, hairy block. He was not exciting looking.
Dupe is cool.
Yeah.
Dupe is cool. But I like seeing the Young Avengers sitting together at a table. That was very exciting to me.
Yes.
That was very... Yeah. I'm easily pleased, it turns out.
Yeah.
A painting of the Young Avengers. You
them on the cruise. Sitting around the table.
All right, what's next?
Is this one I did? Nope. Oh, yes, this one. Because this is the one we almost did on...
Oh, on Bad Batch.
On Bad Batch, and then I realized it was from Marvel Vision. This is from Jordan Bradley, who first starts off by saying, thank you for the years of podcast. You're welcome, Jordan.
We already thanked him on Bad Batch, but we'll thank him again here, Jordan. Thank you.
I was wondering what some of your favorite almost movies are. Some that I was thinking of include Edgar Wright's Ant-Man, George Miller's Justice League, Aronofsky's Batman, Del Toro's In the Mouth of Madness, Nick Cave's Gladiator 2. I'd be fascinated to hear if Devin has some inside scoops on others that we've forgotten. Thanks for all you do.
Well, I am in a documentary about Jodorowsky's Dune.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to mention that because I'm a Jodorowsky Dune expert, it turns out. Because you don't get in a documentary unless you're expert. There's like a whole test that you got to take.
Yeah.
So, I'm an expert on Jodorowsky's Dune. That's one. I actually think Aronofsky's Batman, when it first was announced, I thought it sounded like terrible. But the farther away we get and the more Batman shit we've had, the more interesting it seems to me.
It's essentially absolute Batman.
They turned that into absolute Batman. Yeah. And so it is a really intriguing take on Batman. Like to take away his main superpower of being super fucking rich and sort of see what you come up with. And that's kind of fun. And I think that maybe that wasn't the right time. But I think that was a really interesting idea. That might be the one that I most want. I mean, I would like to have seen Sam Raimi's take on the Vulture.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Jim Cameron's Spider-Man. Having read that scriptment, I don't like it. Edgar's Ant-Man, there's versions of it that are good, and there are versions of it that are real bad, and that's not Edgar's fault. They basically pushed him off the project by doing a lot of rewrites that were pretty awful. One of my favorite stories from that is one of the producing people was insisting that Edgar include a lot of like modern internet humor, like Ant-Man was going to say #blessed and stuff like that, and that was just like, oh no, that's not right. That's not right at all.
No.
So, although I think Peyton did a great job with it, and I think that there's elements of Edgar's, having read some of Edgar's scripts, there are elements of Edgar's Ant-Man, but also Peyton made it his own. So, but yeah, I think that it's the Aronofsky Batman at this point that I most wish we had seen. Now, when it comes to other movies that did not get made, I would have to think about that. There's a lot of movies that didn't get made that we have a lot of information about. I mean, the number one movie that did not get made that I wish I could have seen is Jaws 3 People Zero.
Sure.
And that was the comedy take on Jaws.
The Joe Dante's take.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And Spielberg was like, no. But there's a podcast that does this every week. It's a different movie that didn't get made. I can't remember the name. My friends of mine do it. I can't remember the name of the fucking podcast, though.
I don't know.
Josh Miller, I think Steven Scarlatta, are who host it. Anyway, Jaws 3 People Zero. It's a good script, and I would like to have seen that. And I think the timing would have been really great. And since Jaws was going to shit anyway, it wouldn't have made a difference. Do you know what I mean?
It would not have been worse than Jaws 3.
It wouldn't have been worse than Jaws 4, I'll tell you that much.
Nothing could be worse.
I like Jaws 3 because it's 3D and there's like severed limbs that fly towards the audience. I mean, like I'm an easy mark on that shit. I saw that movie in 3D when it came out.
Yeah.
So, all right, what's the next one? He's not ready. See, he didn't spend the time when I was yapping getting ready. You see this? This is it. This is what I deal with. I'm changing my shoes.
Yeah. This is from Mountain of Conflict. He says, Devin has said multiple times that he views the 90s as the worst blockbusters era.
Yeah.
Are there any in particular that you think about?
I mean, I think that like movies of that era, like what's the one that Keanu Reeves made with
Johnny Mnemonic?
that one's really fucking terrible. It's the one with the cold fusion and he's racing a motorcycle. It's really bad. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, like, I think movies like The General's Daughter are like really crummy. And those are like the big movies of the time. Now, when we talk about like sci-fi or genre pictures, there's very few of them and they all almost universally stink. I mean, you can name any of them, and I don't think any of them are particular. This is the era of steel.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I'm not really, the 90s are really exciting for indie film. That's what's happening in the 90s. And, but like when I was young, I kind of almost got spun out of movies because the mainstream movies of the 90s were so bad.
Yeah.
And then the indie thing happened and I could get back into movies. And then by 99, it's great. Like, you know what I mean? Like 99 is like one of the great movie years of all time. But I mean, like, you know, was the core of the 90s? I can't remember. There's also this thing where,
what's the one with,
but I can't remember if it's the 90s or the early 2000s.
I think it's the 90s.
It might be the early 2000s.
Outbreak.
Outbreak's all right.
It's not good.
It's Dustin Hoffman versus monkeys. Good. It's not that bad. So there's a couple like Congo, which is really bad, but like I like it. Congo's very
interesting
bad. Yeah, it's interesting bad. Like it's really silly. But I just think that whole era, I'm always very confused when people get nostalgic for this stuff because most of it's not very good. And like a lot of it is like John Grisham movies and shit like that are not that good. And yeah, I just don't, you know, I mean, if we had a list in front of us, I could go through the whole thing, but I just can't think of many, if any, 90s blockbusters, like the big tentpole movies, which again, back then were not all action and genre. They were...
No, there was court, there was romantic comedies.
And
yeah,
obviously some of that stuff's okay. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, but especially if we're talking about genre, it's almost all terrible. Like, this is the era of like, isn't 13 Ghosts from this era?
I think that's 2000.
Is that 2000s? There's like a really rough patch.
I think 13 Ghosts might be like 2000.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a rough patch at the beginning of the century. House of Wax is where I think it started coming back.
House of Wax is a good one.
It's very good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Is that 3?
That is 3. There's not much good horror from the 90s either, is there?
No, you're very quiet though.
Oh, sorry.
You got to keep an eye on
There's not much horror from the 90s, is there? Good horror.
90s horror is not my deal. People that love Scream will argue otherwise. But 90s horror... But
Scream is like 98, 90, right? Like, that's the end of it. And Scream is... The problem... Like, Scream is good. The problem is they kept making Scream.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, the whole point is... The meta of it all is destroyed at this point. Where now David Arquette's coming back.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious how that's going to work, actually.
I have a theory.
What's your theory?
Multiverse. No, that would be like, what if they did a multiverse Scream? No, I think he's going to be on like video or something, like how they did Randy in the third one.
Or he could be a ghost.
Could be like that too. I could see a thing where somebody is drugged or whatever,
right? And
they're going to see Stu. They're going to see. I forgot what his name is. You know,
Deputy
Dewey.
Dewey.
There you know, like they'll see a couple of different people who died in the previous ones. You know. And that, like, while they're drugged, that's my theory on that.
Yeah, it's funny with the Scream franchise because many of the characters who become the ghost faces have no connection to the previous movies in any significant way. And so it doesn't feel like it's an act. It just feels like a bunch of random assholes put on this mask and bother the people from the first movie.
Yeah, just like everyone is obsessed with killing Courtney Cox and what's her face. And it's like, why?
Relax, everybody.
Like, move on. Do something else. It's very, like, and everyone's like, I got to use the same outfit. And also, I'm sorry, when you have a slasher movie that you're going in your 7th one and the 2 characters are like not the killers are still alive, You don't have a slasher movie. You have a survival movie.
That's always my favorite, my worst problem with Scream sequels is that you tend to know that the main characters are pretty immortal.
Yeah.
And that's just a bad move in this kind of movie to me.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't like that.
And it's so funny where the first Scream, they pushed it so hard with Drew Barrymore that she's the first to die.
Right.
She's in the opening. Like, how have you never been like, well, now we have to kill Sidney Prescott?
Well,
like,
they killed Randy in the second one. So, like, I think that Wes Craven, if he had really continued heavily doing them, I think maybe might have kept killing people in each movie.
Yeah.
They started doing it, though. They've begun to kill. So, but Dewey is dead. Like, I can't, there's no way they can pretend that he's not dead because he got butchered.
But if he's like, it's my twin.
I really hope it is like, I got better. This is so, I got better. Great. You know, I got better.
I survived, bitch.
I mean, it sort of is like in Daredevil, where it's like, you know, Kingpin got shot in the eye, and then now he's like, I got better.
Yeah, I got a little scar here.
I got better.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of Kingpin and Daredevil, you ready to talk about the first 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again Season 1?
Unfortunately.
Let's do it. Daredevil Born Again Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2, Heaven's Half Hour, and Optics. We're going to kind of go this loose. We're not going to do the usual beat-by-beat thing that we do because I did not get around to doing that. I don't have anything available. It's been a very busy week over here. We got the show tonight for Brittany, the tribute show, so I've been a little bit preoccupied.
Yeah, go to that soon.
We got to go to that soon. So we pick up with a thing we talked about previously between the two of us is that this show has a very intense sense.
I do want to start by saying he picked me up at the airport, and it was very hard for us not to just discuss Daredevil until now. Like it's been very difficult. We did keep breaking into it, unfortunately.
But there's like long periods of silence while driving because it was like, well, all I want to talk about right now is Daredevil, and I don't know what else I could talk about right now. But this show really goes out of its way to say, if you do not know what happened in the previous Netflix show, we do not care about you.
Like, they're not saying characters' names.
No.
They're not explaining who anybody is or what they do.
Nope.
You know, like, do they even say that they're lawyers until like you see him at a law firm?
No, we see them coming out of a law firm.
Okay. So
they're coming out of the storefront law firm.
Yeah.
And when they're like the happy trio. So, but like, that's only if you're paying attention. Like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They do at the bar when Foggy's talking to the woman who becomes Matt's new partner.
Oh, that's
McDuffie.
Right. Yeah.
So they go to this party at Josie's bar, which is the retirement party for Detective Cherry, who is a cop that everybody loves.
Who's not in the original series.
My understanding is that he's not.
I thought he was.
And but it's played by Clark Johnson, who directed some of the original series and who was on Homicide. He was on the entire run of Homicide, and he was on The Wire. He was on The Wire season 5. Clark Johnson, really great. I quite like Clark Johnson in this. I think some of the problems you have with these 2 episodes, I don't have because I like Clark Johnson just standing around talking.
No, he's a good actor. There's no arguing that.
But they go to this bar at Josie's. Now, I want to say right up front, this first episode looks like trash. Like, I could not... We were talking about this also, and your theory was they had to shoot green screen plates to put over the... Because they shot, like, a whole bunch of episodes and then canned them all.
Yeah.
And then did reshoots. So you think they shot green screen plates to fit in with previously shot?
Yeah, that's my theory.
It looks like shit. And we know from spy photos that these are live locations. These are New York City locations. People were on the streets taking photos of Josie's bar.
Yeah.
But when you watch the show, it looks like it's on a soundstage. And it looks like garbage. It's lit unbelievably cheaply looking. And it's like crazy. It's like wild to me. The second episode, I think, looked much better. And I was surprised because Benson and Moorhead, who directed the first episode, did not have these visual problems in some of their previous stuff. And their indie movies are visually interesting.
Moon Knight?
Moon Knight was really great. Yeah. So it really looked like garbage, though.
It did not look good.
However, some of the stuff that looked like garbage I was okay with because it was like obviously like either background replacement or they were just in front of a translite, and it's like Daredevil swinging around. So I was like, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm willing to let that go.
Him jump around and stuff was nice. Yeah, I was all for that.
Anyway, they go to this, and Foggy's hitting on this lady who is the public defender. Oh no, she's the DA office.
DA.
She's DA, and everybody's hanging out. And then Foggy gets a phone call. There is a guy that they are representing at Murdoch and Nelson, and he's like Dumb Benny or something like that. They call him.
Yeah.
And he had some pretty dopey heists, but it turns out that he's being hunted, and he's being held up. Foggy put him in his apartment. And so to keep him away from the bad guys that are hunting him. And this guy calls Foggy. He's like, hey, I think somebody's fucking here to kill me. And we get a pretty good example of Matt Murdock's hearing a couple of times in this. This is a pretty good example of it. Like where he's able to like zoom in and hear through the glass to outside what Foggy is saying.
And to the credit of Aaron and Moorhead, they do a really good thing, I think, where when we first get a sense of Matt's hearing, like there's like
a halo
or dust particle that goes over his ear and stops, and then everything kind of muffles except for what he wants to listen to. And I was like, that's a really cool way to put the focus on his ear for the viewer to be like, oh, he's got super hearing. Yeah.
I mean, we're still not doing radar sense.
No.
But again, I think if you watch this and you didn't know the previous shows, like this stuff where he's like walking around his house just doing stuff, you'd be like, this guy's faking being blind. But like that's
if you watch the previous show, you would think that. So it's fine.
So Matt overhears this and is like, hey, this sounds like a bad news. And then while they're on the phone, somebody comes breaking into the apartment. So Matt daredevils up, which he had said he wasn't going to do anymore. And he goes off to...
well, this is before he says he's not going to do it anymore, right?
No, because he says, Foggy, why didn't you tell me?
And Foggy
says,
like,
I didn't want to tempt you to get back in.
Oh, I took that as just the thing of like, again, not having finished the original series, that Foggy is just never really comfortable with him being Daredevil. And being like, I just didn't want you to go.
I didn't finish the original series either. I didn't finish season 3. Anyway, it turns out this is just a fucking feint. That the premise is to actually get Daredevil away from Foggy. And it's Bullseye, who looks like shit because it's the version from season 3 of Daredevil. And not
that the show tells you it's Bullseye.
No, they'll tell you it's Bullseye. However,
down to later on, they just keep calling him Poindexter. And I was like, is that Bullseye's last name?
That is Bullseye's last name. Yeah,
Poindexter.
And the most amazing thing happens. He snipes Foggy right to the chest, and Foggy doesn't just die; he dies slow.
Yes,
which was very, very gratifying for these two Foggy haters, I would say.
Oh, it was great.
And what's great is that he gets shot through the chest, splattering Karen in blood. The first of 2 times she's going to be splattered in blood within 5 minutes. It made that I thought was very funny, and I really like that. And then you really do get why Karen moves away. You're like, okay, that actually might be like enough.
Yeah, like I'm out, I'm done.
So Bullseye shows up, and we get like Daredevil swinging around the city, which again I love seeing it. Like it didn't look good. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I love seeing it. Like I was just happy that it was there. And what ends up happening is Daredevil and Bullseye have a fight. And it's a fight that's better in concept than execution, but the concept is so good that I'm very willing to overlook some of the poor execution of the fight. Because the premise is it's a oneer, which like the original show was like all about. But this one I think is really interesting because it's super geographic.
Yeah.
And it's the camera coming into the bar, through the bar, into the back of the bar, up the back stairs, through the tenement, up to the roof. And so I think that's really cool. Like I think that's really interesting to this moving fight that way.
I think it's a 2-part thing as well because of what I watched of the original series and what I know of Daredevil. Josie's was their home away from home. And here it is being destroyed.
Right.
So Matt is not just losing his closest friend, he's losing his home. And I think that's a good way to play it up.
They get to the roof. Another thing I like, I saw some people complaining about this, but I like that this fight is like so brutal. Bullseye is just filling Daredevil with knives. The whole fight.
It becomes real comedic.
Well, he has Kevlar on, so the knives aren't getting empty.
No, it's more that like...
It's like, just so many knives out of him.
How many knives do you have?
Well, Bullseye, get him in the mouth.
He's like...
Well, Bullseye has just a million knives. I mean, that's the thing. I do wish he was throwing cards or something, like a real Bullseye shit.
I think
we saw him do a paperclip to kill a moth.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool, and I kind of wanted to see more of that.
Yeah.
But I also get why you're just doing knives, because it's just a fight that you're having.
And I think cards it'd be hard to explain that, like in the moment, you know?
They don't explain shit, so maybe that would be fine.
True.
And it works to their advantage in episode 2 when they're like, oh, his mystical
He
amulet.
does do some cool stuff with the pool balls, though.
Yeah.
Where he's like tossing them behind himself without looking. Like, that was cool.
Yeah, that was pretty good. But I like the ferocity of this fight. Like, I think that really works, like, for this opening fight. And because Bullseye in the comics is Daredevil's, like, real archenemy.
Yes.
Like, I mean, like, I know Kingpin is, but Bullseye really is.
I mean, Bullseye killed Elektra.
Yeah, like, and that's obviously stuff that's never going to happen in this universe.
Having Bullseye kill
Foggy is a pretty
well.
good version of that. So I like that. And I like the fact that it's a really brutal fight where they're both... I mean, I think that apparently I didn't finish season 3, which we should have done because we do a podcast about this stuff. He got a vibranium-infused skeleton or a vibranium-infused spine. In the comics, he has an adamantium spine. So in terms of like the beating that he takes, which probably he should not have made it as far as he did, that I think is the explanation. And that's how he survives the fall off the roof. Yeah. But they get up to the very good bit here. They get up to the roof, looks like shit, but as Bullseye comes out of the door, he had thought he had maybe beat Daredevil, and then Daredevil comes up from behind the building and does a really incredible superhero
Daredevil land.
Yeah, and then jumps on Bullseye from that. I mean, again, it's not well done, but in terms of what that first show was like, it's night and day.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's a superhero. He's doing superhero stuff. He's swinging around. He's running across rooftops. He's doing superhero landings. You know, I
mean, this first episode looks like we're like, hey, we have to reshoot the entire first episode. Cool. What's our budget for it? What do you mean? No. You already spent the money on the first episode. Now you just got to reshoot. That's what a lot of this looked like. So,
Daredevil and Bullseye fight on the roof, and then finally Daredevil's like, why would you fucking do it? And Bullseye's just like, fuck you, man. And so I actually like Cox's choice on this. Charlie Cox plays Daredevil. He goes to kill Bullseye, but he does it so casually.
Here's the thing.
He just shoves him.
I like that.
Yeah.
What I don't like is when he's screaming in his face, why? He's like way too overboard on that.
I'm okay with that. That's a comic book splash page where he's holding him and it's like a giant
it very
spiky
much is.
I'm okay with it.
It's the same as like in the pilot for the original 90s Flash TV show. Barry's brother gets killed and Barry finds his brother killed by the biker gang and he's holding his brother and it's the ever classic shot in movies where it's overhead looking down at him and he looks up, he's like, no! And it's one of those things where it's like, yes, in a comic that works.
I'm gonna say something.
In live action, not so much.
I'm gonna bring the whole room down for a minute. So I have had 2 significant losses in the last few years, and both times maybe this is just because I am a movie and comic book guy, but not thinking when I found out that my dog died, I was on the phone with the vet and I literally fell to my knees. Like my legs just gave out.
Sure. Yeah.
And when Brittany died, after, everything, I went into the garage and I did a version of the looking up at the sky screaming no. Like I did it. And I was not like saying like, let me go do the screaming at the sky. It was like, so I agree, but
maybe it's the actors. Nothing against John Wesley Shipp. He's not the best actor.
No. I also think that there's a staging that the way these things are done that gets very cliche. But I will say that I was very surprised in both these cases afterwards going, wait, I did the movie thing. I just did the movie thing. I can't believe but that might be because I'm a movie guy. Maybe that's why. It's just ingrained in my brain.
Yeah. But I do like when he's like choking him and forces him to look down on the street. Yeah. I really like that he's got Bullseye looking down the street like, look what you've done, look what you did, and then just casual push him off.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's really good. And then Bullseye lands right next to Karen who gets splattered in his blood.
Yeah. There was a moment where I was like, is he going to land on her?
I was so hopeful. That would be amazing. Incredible if they killed Karen off that way. Foggy dies, and that's the reason why, by the way, Matt's losing his fucking mind because he can hear Foggy's heartbeat the whole time.
Yeah.
So he hears the heartbeat slowing down. Matt's up there, takes off his mask, throws it down off the roof. He doesn't know that Bullseye didn't die yet, and so for him, he just committed murder. And I think that whether or not it worked, he did do
that was his thought.
Yeah, like I'm going to kill this guy. Yeah. Not like I'm not going to save him. I'm not going to whatever. He's like, I'm shoving this guy off a fucking roof.
Yeah.
And that's when Cherry comes up the stairs and sees that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. And so we then cut ahead to a year later.
I kind of like that they did the same thing that they do in Endgame, where it goes 1 year, or it says 1 year later.
Yes.
So they're doing like the same idea.
We have Kingpin stuff going on, all of which is deeply confusing to me, having watched Echo and Hawkeye, because I don't understand how a lot of this stuff fits in per se. But I guess Kingpin is on the outs with his wife.
Yeah. He apparently is having issues at home.
But I guess the thing is, if the MCU is essentially real time, it actually is a minute between these things.
Yes.
That's the thing that's always hard for me to keep in mind, that it really is like a minute between these things.
Oh, it's a very long time. I mean, you got to figure Daredevil, the series, takes place, the original series, the Netflix series, takes place before the blip.
Yeah.
So you have all the years of Daredevil, which I don't know what was going on with Vanessa and Wilson at the end of that. The blip, right? 5 years, which they, in theory, both were not blipped. But we don't know.
Or they both were blipped. I was going to guess. But the thing is, that's actually really funny.
Well, they couldn't be, because there's no way they would still be able to have control over the underworld.
That's one of the things that's funny about this, is that when they go to the therapist in the second episode, the answer is that Kingpin was blipped and she took over the Empire for 5 years. Like that's kind of a better answer than he was like recovering from getting shot in the face.
I disagree, because I am tired of the blip being a major part of all these stories. I like that he's like, I got shot in the face, and that really messed me up for a long time. I like that.
So she's having a meeting with the 5 families of New York, which, by the way, are no longer of any value. The Tracksuit Mafia is one of the 5 families now. Give me a break.
Yeah.
But as an Italian, I find that very offensive.
Well, I mean, that is clearly just because they're like, well, they were in Hawkeye.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't mind that. Like, in terms of like comic book shit, your big Magia families are always. I wish they would say Magia. I get they're not going to probably ever say that, because it does sound dumb as shit when you say it out loud.
Yeah.
But Magia is the Marvel Mafia. So she's having this meeting, and he shows up, and everybody's like, "Ooh, boy, this guy's here." And it's like very confusing in the moment, because I was like, "Wait, what's happening? Like, why is everybody upset that Kingpin walked in the room?" I feel like that's like his job, is to walk in the room. And at first, I was like, "Is everybody mad because he's on Ozempic? Is that what's happening here? Like, they're really like they're disappointed. They want him to work out." But then it turns out that like I still don't understand why everybody got mad at Kingpin. I guess because they know that there's like a split where she's kind of running day to day and he's kind of disappeared for a minute, and that it's not like everybody's like, "Ooh, who's actually running this shit?"
They say later that he's trying to go legit.
Yeah, well, that's part of the mayor thing. I mean, so because he decided to run for mayor, the timing doesn't make sense.
He decides at the end of Echo, when he sees on TV
that there's a mayoral election happening then.
Yeah,
but that doesn't make any sense, because that's not long enough ago. Because he's been recovering from being shot in the face for a long time. But
in Echo, he's already recovered.
No, he's not. He's got a fucking.
He's got the cybernetic eye, or he's got the eye patch, and then at the end, he's got the cybernetic eye thing going on.
I guess. Does he? That's the thing. It's like some of the stuff I don't remember.
Or is it just he's got the contact that lets him see?
Yeah, but I think he doesn't have an eye still at the end when he goes on the plane and sees the. But I don't want to have to go back and rewatch Echo for this. I liked Echo. I'm not like anti-Echo. But I just don't want to have to go back and rewatch a fucking show. I wish somebody had just told us.
Like, why did this not start with like a previously on?
Well, I was curious if they were going to do previously on Daredevil. Yeah, because it's 3 different television shows that this goes through.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot to remember. But the only reason why I was bothered by it was because I knew he got shot in the eye.
Yeah,
and so when he shows up and he has his eyes and he's fine, I'm like, I need somebody to tell me what's going on here. And they keep talking about him getting shot in the eye, so it isn't like they don't know this happened. Like the writers don't know what's happened. They keep talking about it.
I mean, they mention Echo. They don't call her by name.
I was a mentor to somebody, and they shot me in the face.
Shot me point blank in the face. Vanessa.
So he's running for mayor, and he needs her to back off all this shit because he's running for mayor, so they can't be doing this upfront crime family shit anymore.
He's like, despite me doing all this on television before, we have to stop now.
He comes into the middle of the meeting and goes, Vanessa, are there any more frosted flakes?
Vanessa, we're all out of bread, and I wanted A sandwich.
The thing that's so funny about Kingpin is that Vincent D'Onofrio loves this character, and he's a really good actor. These are all the choices of a good actor doing something insane constantly.
I think that's why he loves it, is because he's like, what else am I going to be able to be this like kooky?
Yeah, he's having the time of his life. We now a year later, and Matt Murdock has to go to court because it's the sentencing for Bullseye, aka Poindexter. And he has to give his victim impact statement. Somebody on our Discord mentioned, we only hear about this one victim, but we only see one victim impact statement. Conceptually, there have been other victim impact statements that happened before Matt, and they were saving Matt potentially for the final one. So, because he is convicted for 11 murders. So it's not like they forgot that he killed him, because he clearly killed a bunch of fucking people in that fight.
He actively, by the way, does not kill what's her face?
Karen.
Yeah. So, like, that is a choice he makes not to kill her.
Well, sort of. It's funny because the problem is that it's Bullseye, and in the comics, what happens is it looks like he's gonna shoot Karen, and then somebody opens the door to the bar and he shoots that person. And for a regular character, I would say that he got, knocked off his sight and shot this guy, but it's Bullseye. Like, the whole premise he doesn't miss.
But it's not just another person. It's two people, one on either side of her. So he had to go pop, pop, and not shoot her.
I guess you're right. I mean, I guess that taking into account that assuming that this is Bullseye presented as Bullseye, where he does not miss. Yeah. That's like the deal. You're right. He did leave her alive. Maybe to torture Matt Murdock.
Probably because they were like, we did kill her originally, but now we want to have at least one of them alive moving forward with the series.
Yeah, which is actually not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Frankly. Like, I understand, I think killing Foggy is for the best, and I fucking love it, and I'm all about it. But I understand that decision-making makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
All right, we did a little pause there. I hope that actually worked. I'm doing my laundry. So that's why we had to do a little pause. Anyway, where were we?
You shouldn't have brought it up, and everyone would be like, there's a weird cut where they just jump into different positions.
I know. Well, no, they just think I'm bad at editing, which is true. So he goes to this thing. He gives his little speech. I thought it was a pretty good speech, not in terms of necessarily that well written, but like in terms of like explaining the Daredevil dichotomy within Matt Murdock.
Yeah.
Which is that the difference between justice and vengeance, and that it's really... justice is not always enough. Sometimes you want vengeance, and but he also recognizes the value of justice. And so Karen shows up. Previously, we have been told that he had not seen Karen in a year, basically since Foggy's death. And he carries around Foggy's little memorial service booklet with him all the time.
Does he? I didn't notice that.
He picks it up there,
and
then he has it again later on in episode 2.
Okay.
And she distracts him in the middle of. I'm going to say something very positive about this. She comes into the courtroom. He can hear her walking. He knows her walk. That's Daredevil. And she comes into the courtroom while he's talking, and he gets totally thrown off. He apologizes to the judge.
Yes.
And so many times in movies, we have watched somebody get thrown off and stare off into space or whatever, and then just not acknowledge that it just occurred.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank you for acknowledging that there was a long and awkward silence in the middle of a sentence just now.
No, I like that. Yeah.
Thank God. So they meet up outside after the thing, after Poindexter gets 11 lifetime consecutive sentences. I suspect we're going to see him again. And it turns out Karen lives in San Francisco.
Yes.
Which is that a reference to the Incredible Hulk movie that introduced Daredevil to live action?
I thought it was because in the comics she moved to San Francisco for a time.
I thought she moved to L.A.
I thought she lived in San Francisco. I know Daredevil lived in San Francisco for a time.
Yeah, I knew that too, but I like the idea that it's an Incredible Hulk thing.
Sure,
because in the Incredible Hulk TV movie that introduced Daredevil to live action, where he had the exact same costume as season 1 of Daredevil at Netflix.
Yeah. Clear, I really do believe Frank Miller was like, oh, for my Daredevil Year One, I'm going to put him in that costume. We should put him in that costume from the Hulk TV movie.
But Murdoch associates were in San Francisco in that movie for whatever reason. I thought Karen went to L.A. to be in porn.
I don't remember. I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay, well,
I thought she moved to San Francisco.
I mean, that also makes sense. It's less porny because she got into porn and heroin. That was her thing. Uh-oh. Computer, stop. See, that was my alarm for my... That was the alarm for my laundry, and I meant to turn it off when I came back from getting the laundry out of the dryer. But
Well,
fucking up this podcast. What do you know? That's what we do. We fuck up this podcast. Anyway, she had moved to San Francisco. She has not seen Matt. She does not want to talk to Matt. She wants nothing to do with Matt. Like, it's pretty brutal, frankly.
it's weird that she showed up to walk in at the end and then be like, I don't want to talk to you, and walk away. Like, why did she show up? Like, she says, I felt like I should be here for Foggy, but she's not there to give a witness statement or to give her, like, to give a statement at the end for pre-sentencing, because she comes walking in right there, right? So why was she there?
We love a dramatic queen.
I guess
She's got dramatic timing. That's her whole thing. She flew across the country to have a 5-minute
to walk in just before everything ended.
Maybe her flight got delayed. You know, FAA is a mess right now, man.
That's true.
Like,
That's true.
but she does leave something for Matt, and I also like this too. She's like, I found this.
My flight was delayed because the president turned into a Hulk, and that caused some problems in the Washington area.
I like this, that she says, I found something at Josie's, and it's one of Daredevil's horns from when he dropped his mask off the side of the building. I really like that. Like, I don't know why I like that so much, but I like the fact that she, like, I can see that she's in a state of shock and she picks it up. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And I like that she's hanging on to it.
For a year.
And then she gives it to Matt as a way of being like, fuck this. I'm not hanging on to this anymore.
Yeah, I'm letting this go.
But I like also that there's a transfer to Matt, because now that becomes a thing that Matt's going to play with for the next episode and a half as he ponders the question of, do I become Daredevil again?
Yeah.
So I like that. At first, when she put it down and said, oh, I'm not going to like this. And I said, you know what? I'm on the side of this little horn.
Okay.
I like the little horn. We get to see Matt's new law office. I would like the story. I like this, by the way. So I'm gonna make a small complaint. But I like that he has like a very fancy law office, and that he is partnered with somebody from the DA. So it isn't even like he partnered with like a high power lawyer. He partnered with somebody that's making a fucking public servant salary, and he had just been a storefront lawyer. And I like that. That whatchamacallit, it's like super nice. Like, it looks like the setting for a law show.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how he got that together in a year, but I'm willing to let it go.
This is one thing in the original series, again, having not finished it, maybe this gets answered sometime after halfway through season 2, but they're consistently broke. They have horrible law offices, right? He lives in $1 million loft.
He does.
And I don't remember ever seeing Foggy's place. But it's like, where did Matt get all this money from? Because his dad was broke.
So here's what I think. I think that Matt got that money from the company that blinded him. And it was put into a trust.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
That he couldn't access until he was an adult.
That makes sense.
That's just headcanon for the sake of this. But like, in 1963, when Matt Murdock got blinded, it's like, well, that's what happens to this kid. In the 21st century, in late 20th century, you blind somebody.
I mean,
there's a lawsuit.
Yeah. In 1963, they would have been like, "We're suing that kid. He jumped out in front of our truck." So
that's my take. That Matt got his apartment because he made a bunch of money. They paid him hush money. It was like when you turn 18, and that's how he paid for law school and stuff like that. Because he went to a good law school, right? Because he went to the same school, the Electra, and she's the daughter of a fucking Greek shipping magnate, right?
And Foggy was there too.
Foggy, but what's Foggy? His name is Foggy.
Well, Foggy's family is well off.
Are they?
In the show, he keeps talking about like how they own like their own like meat packing business, right? That his parents wanted him to be a butcher, like his dad.
Well, maybe he has some money that he left Matt.
No, but I'm talking about in the original series when Foggy is alive.
No, I'm saying, but maybe he then left money to Matt, and that's where this money for this law office came from.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I don't know. I don't care. I don't need them to explain it, but I like it. And I like this new partner.
Yes.
I like this new partner because I think she's interesting. I like the actress. And I like that she is a foil for Matt in a way that it just Foggy was so irritating.
Yeah.
And she's not irritating. And it's like night and day. And so she is there at the office. We meet Cherry, who now works for Matt as a PI, which I think also is great. Like, I think that that's something that was missing from the Netflix show. Somebody complained that it should have been Jessica Jones working as a PI, but I mean, that's if you can get Kristen Ritter. But also, like, no, like I like this old cop.
Yeah.
Like that's a vibe that I like. The retired cop as PI. That's your Breaking Bad. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I mean, in the original series, it was for the first season, it was Ben Urich,
right,
and then he gets killed by Kingpin.
right.
So I don't think they have anybody in the second season, from what I saw.
You gotta speak up.
Oh,
I'm trying to point at the
I didn't know
little
what you were
thing.
doing. I had no idea what you were doing.
See the
Yeah.
difference. Up. You gotta
Okay.
speak up.
Okay.
He does his Popeye mumbles, which is what we love about him.
Yeah.
Don't we, folks? I'm from Queens, so every now and again I talk like Donald Trump. Derek is once again mesmerized by the cat.
I just like that you put your laundry in the basket there, and now he's just laying on the clothes.
Well, because it's warm. He's laying on
Yeah.
the warm clothes right now. Yeah,
Right.
he is. The laundry has to get put away later, but right now he's just laying on the warm clothes. So, God bless him. Anyway, we have all this stuff happening. What else happens in the first episode? Kingpin becomes mayor, and the new partner does a very good, I think, meet cute with
Yes.
Matt and a girl named Heather Glenn, who's a therapist.
Yes.
And she tells Matt that she needs a lawyer, and she tells Heather that Matt needs a therapist.
Which at first I thought that's what it was she was trying to get Matt to go to therapy.
Right. But no, it's a meet
she's
cute.
like, no, I want you to bang this therapist.
Yeah. So bad news. Heather Glenn is from the comics, and she dies.
Of course she does. She's a Daredevil girlfriend.
But it's even worse than that.
Oh.
Like when they brought her in, I was like, oh, when they say dark and gritty, I can see that this might be getting really dark and gritty. Because in the comics, she dates a bunch of other superheroes too. But eventually she becomes an alcoholic, and she misses Matt so much that she calls him and pretends that she's being attacked so that Daredevil will come to her house. And Matt is like, you're a mess. This is awful. Don't ever do this again. So then she goes into her closet and hangs herself. So that's the canonical story. Daredevil browbeat this woman into suicide. So that almost certainly feels like a thing.
How is it that we always talk about Hank Pym slapping the Wasp one time, Janet once, where every woman that Matt Murdock dates becomes a heroin addict and dies in the streets, hangs themselves because he won't talk to them. Like, he is the worst.
He's a bad boyfriend. Don't get involved. So I'm assuming that Heather Glenn is going to have an equally unpleasant finale in the show that is definitely interested in being dark and gritty.
Yeah.
Because that's already dark and gritty, and that's the canonical comic book thing.
That's wild. That's unsettling.
And that's a pretty good guilt motivator for Matt, too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so, but they have a meetup, and it turns out that they actually do hit it off, that the partner, McDuffie, was right, and they go on a date, and it's going pretty well, but while they're on the date, Matt Murdock does the Daredevil version of not being able to stop looking at your phone.
Yes.
The Daredevil version of that is listening to TVs as you walk by.
Which, to be fair to him, they're on a date in which the mayor debate is happening, and then the election is over, which seems very weird, right?
I think they were showing us footage from the mayor debate on election night.
Okay, because I took it as like, oh, okay, so the debate's happening.
No.
Oh, no, everyone's voting. Oh, no, he's the mayor, all within a coffee date.
No, I think that the idea is that they were showing us footage of the debates.
Okay.
One of the things we talked about coming home from the airport was that we both really liked that they just fast forwarded through the campaign. Like, don't make this the whole premise.
I thought it was going to be a whole season of it. Yeah.
Like, we just got through it. Like, that's it. It's done. We get to meet young Tony Soprano.
Yes.
Who is the Gen Z consultant on the Kingpin's campaign. And he has some big ideas and a lot of enthusiasm. And I like this character a lot.
I do too.
I like him a lot. And I think that I'm excited to see where this character goes. Part of it is I think Michael Gandolfini is really good. He's different than his dad.
He's different and yet the same.
He's got a lot of similarities. And
he's got the same mannerisms.
Yeah, he has the same mannerisms, a lot of similarities. But there's something like in the second episode when he brings the BB Urich to the Kingpin, and he thinks that she's going to sleep with him because of this. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's not a James Gandolfini thing.
No.
And I like that. That makes us undercut like our own expectations of this guy because we know who his dad is, you know?
Like James, there's a moment there when they're about to go in to talk to Kingpin in that episode, And BB says, I can't tell if you're a political genius or an idiot doing this. And he's like, I don't know, maybe both. And his father would have put more of like a smirky child, like little devil smile on it, like who knows. And he played it more of like, I honestly have no idea.
Yeah,
like, and I like that.
We also see that Kingpin has a British guy. Is he from the original show?
No, I don't think so. At least in the first season, he's got a dude who gets killed, who Karen kills. And then the second season, as much of it as I watched, he didn't have anybody. But I don't know if that guy showed up later. I don't know if he's in Defenders. I have no idea.
Yeah, he's a British guy who's like, and then they also have like a lady who is like a real political consultant.
Yeah.
So he has like his British guy. He has Michael Gandolfini, and he has this lady who's his political consultant. And they win. And as I said to you the other day, there was somebody on Blue Sky said, you know, when they did Mayor Kingpin in the comics, they did President Lex Luthor in the comics. I said, this is so stupid. Like, everybody knows these guys are supervillains. Like, they would never vote for them. But now we live in the world where, in fact, the supervillain is president, and they do vote for him. And there's not even like the first Trump term, like where people are like, well, I don't know. Like the second Trump term, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows what happened January 6th.
Nobody who voted this past time was too young to understand what happened last time. Yeah.
So with that in mind, all of a sudden these old storylines that we all kind of rolled our eyes at, President Lex Luthor, give me a break. We're like, oh, okay. No, actually, this makes sense. And so the Kingpin stuff ends up being like, it might have been really stupid. But instead, it's like, oh, no, this is actually happening in our world right now as we speak.
Yeah.
And we should talk about that really up front, because there's a lot of Trump parallels with Kingpin, purposefully so, quite clearly. They don't wear red hats. They wear blue hats.
Yeah.
And there are people who kind of love the idea that Kingpin kills guys. That's like part of his appeal to his base.
Yeah.
And his base is super rowdy. Like when he wins, they get out into the street and begin like fighting and shit. And on his inauguration, they start doing that kind of shit too. And so that's, I think, part of the deal here, is that he has that element where the fact that he is a bad guy is what people like about him. And the other thing that's really Trump adjacent, and maybe this is why this is even happening in the show, is that Vanessa doesn't want to be involved in his political career.
Yeah.
And that's the Melania of it all, where she doesn't even want to live in the White House. And so I wonder if that's why they went that direction with them being split, was to make it more specifically a Trump analog.
I don't think so.
No?
No, I think somebody was like, it'll be an interesting thing to have Wilson Fisk in therapy. And I think that's what they were going for. I think that was the push on that idea.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's the whole first episode, right? Did I miss anything from the first episode?
I mean, we get introduced to BB Urich in the first episode.
Yeah, she doesn't really do anything. It's like we have like interstitials where she's like doing man on the street interviews. Derek was real upset because she's using a film filter, and it's very arty.
I don't like it.
I think that feels TikTok-y to me, though. I think there's a certain kind of TikToker that I think that this makes sense for. I didn't mind it that much. It's not great, but like I didn't mind it that much. And I don't love that it's BB Urich. I think that's like, but they killed Ben Urich, and this new show has to deal with the fact that the fucking original showrunner decided to kill one of the more dynamic Daredevil side characters.
Yeah,
very stupid. One of the things that Kingpin's running on is he's running on an anti-vigilante platform. Himself, the victim of vigilante violence. I like that a lot too, by the way.
Yes,
that's also very Trumpy. Like, oh, the deep state is coming for me.
Yeah,
and if they can come for me, they can come for you. If these vigilantes can beat me up, they can beat you up.
Yeah.
There were also some complaints on our Discord about the idea that there's only a handful of vigilantes in New York City, and that would not be enough to create this level of concern. I disagree strongly. New York City is a really
for one thing, New York City is not that big.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
You know, it's a pretty small. Like I forgot who it was, but somebody the other day it was on the Heroes for Hire podcast, which is a very good podcast. I highly recommend it. And one of the guys on that was like, whenever they talk about like, oh, Daredevil, he protects Hell's Kitchen, and it's like, wow, that must be crazy. And then you're like, oh, it's like 5 buildings.
Yeah, it's like 6 blocks.
Yeah,
tops,
there's nothing there.
I like also the show, by the way, in the beginning is like, oh yeah, Hell's Kitchen isn't bad anymore.
Yeah,
it's totally gentrified. They put a Soul Cycle in. Yeah. Like I like that, because that was a big problem with the original Daredevil show. Where they're like, oh, Hell's Kitchen, and you're like, oh, this place gentrified 10 years ago.
Yeah,
like, this is.
Oh, you're like, oh, Hell's Kitchen, where Bill Clinton has an office.
Yeah. In fact, it's called Clinton Hill.
Yeah.
But so he's anti. But I think that New York City is the kind of media environment that New York City has for vigilantes is more than enough to create an intense vigilante panic. We talking about when we were kids, there was a guy that was using a blowgun to shoot darts into people's asses. He was called Dart Man.
And it was right when Dark Man was coming out, and people were like, is this connected?
And then there was Bernie Getz, who killed some kids on the subway, and that was like a fucking endlessly big deal forever. Like, I think that like 4 costume, because we have White Tiger, we have seen in action on security camera footage.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Oh, that's the other thing we missed, right?
What's that?
Is that in the first
That's
episode?
the second episode.
Okay.
We see White Tiger in the first episode in security camera footage. Somebody's talking about vigilantes. Yeah. I think that the action in that security camera footage is bad, and I think that's too bad because security camera footage is so forgiving that you could have had much better action than what we saw there. But that was our first look at White Tiger. So they have White Tiger, Spider-Man, Daredevil, and the Punisher running around New York is like the premise. But Daredevil's been gone for a year. And so that's another big piece of Fisk's whole thing is he's anti. You complained about this in the car ride. His line to the current mayor.
Oh, that the current mayor wants to have a registration for vigilantes. And that doesn't make sense to me because they already have the Sokovia Accords. In theory. So we don't know if they do or not.
We don't know if it's still in place anymore. I'm not sure. I don't know what the blip did to it. And then the other thing is that I'm not really sure what the breadth of the Sokovia Accords are. Like, is Punisher covered by the Sokovia Accords? He's a guy with guns, right? Like, what he's doing is illegal separately, but like in terms of like having to register as a superhero, would that be something he has to do? And nobody knows that Daredevil has powers.
Yeah,
they just think he's like a ninja.
Yeah, but like I said, Hawkeye retired because it was either sign the Accords or retire.
But that might be because he's an Avenger.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, and he'd be like, hey guys, I just have a fucking bow and arrow. And they're like, yeah, but you're a costumed Avenger. You got to do it. Like, we need this to make this whole thing seem legit. We need as many Avengers on our side for this registration. And that's like a headcanon thing.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have powers. And neither does Black Widow. Right. I mean, I don't know how Spider-Man is obviously covered by the Sokovia Accords. Although I guess he's probably registered, right?
He can't be.
Why not?
Because nobody knows who Peter Parker is. He was wiped out.
I know, but they had a fight about the Sokovia Accords. Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah. Right, that was taken away.
So like, there might be like a document that's like Spider-Man, real name, and it's just like blank.
Unless it's like the Spider-Man cartoon where it's Joe Gallo.
Yeah, they just a different name. I don't know.
The second episode opens with a guy coming down some subway steps carrying some flowers. There's a nice dedication at the beginning of the episode. This guy's dead.
Yes.
How did he die? Do you know?
I do not.
I don't know either. I also don't know the guy's name, which is terrible. Usually I have more information in front of me. This time I have no information in front of me. But he sees a guy getting beat up by 2 dudes. And he jumps in and fights the 2 dudes. And in the fight, one of the 2 dudes gets thrown in front of a speeding train and gets fucking exploded, which I really liked. And then the other guy then is like, stop, police. And it turned out these were 2 undercover cops. I'm actually really glad they brought this up later on in the episode. They did not declare themselves cops when he first got involved.
No, not at all.
Because he walks in and goes, hey, stop beating that guy up.
Yeah.
And they don't go, we're cops. So I am like, I kind of love there's actually a point to it. Do you know what I mean? Like that the cops are just that fucking, it's Camar de los Reyes. And he passed away. And so this guy gets arrested. And then he's going to become Matt Murdock's new client because Matt's going to be at the courthouse and he's going to be talking to another client and he's going to hear this guy getting beat up by the cops in another room. So he does a Saul Goodman and walks in and goes, I'm your lawyer now. And this guy doesn't want to talk to Matt. He doesn't want to be, he doesn't want Matt representing him. He can't afford Matt. Matt's like, don't worry about it. I'm taking you on pro bono. I got a whole firm, so it's not going to be a problem for you. And he's like, he's using his Daredevil senses to see if this guy did kill the cops. And he can tell the guy's not lying. But then he says, there's something you're not telling me. And the guy is lying there. Yeah. So Matt's like really interested because he's like, okay, the cops who brought this guy in deny there was a guy getting beat up. So that's the problem. See, he doesn't have a witness. I kind of had a problem. I'm pretty sure there's going to be security footage, if I had to guess.
I imagine the cops can.
Yeah, I mean, that might be part of the story moving forward.
Yeah.
Although Cherry should have said it by now.
Yeah.
Because Matt puts Cherry on the case, says, find this missing guy. And so Matt takes the case. His partner's not happy about it. She's like, you want to do a cop killer? Like, this, everybody hates cop killers, man. Like, this is very bad for us. Like, we're a new firm. Like, we just don't want to be, like, defending cop killers. And sure enough, everybody's super fucking mad that he's defending a cop killer.
Yes.
He gets a lot of shit from, like, reporters. Like, so do you hate cops? Which I really liked. Meanwhile, Kingpin is running around. He's now the mayor. And he's discovering that being the mayor sucks.
Although, there is a moment... I thought this was going to happen, where his assistant, the campaign manager, comes in, and she's like, "Hey, you got to go meet with like the chief, the fire chief. Do you want to do it here or at the firehouse?" And he goes, "The firehouse." And I was hoping for him to follow, be like, "I love the trucks." But he doesn't. He just says the firehouse.
No, he says he goes to the firehouse because he knows the guy doesn't like him. So meeting him on his own.
No,
turf.
but it's the police commissioner.
That's the police commissioner.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sure this guy probably.
He says I need to go meet him on his own turf to show deference. That's one of the ways I think you had said that he, even though this is a Trump analog, quite clearly, and we're not even making like political. Like there's no way around it.
Yeah.
Except that Kingpin is really savvy.
Yes.
And
well, that's why I say it's a Trump analog, but to me it doesn't work because Kingpin is smart.
Yeah.
Like he knows how to do things.
Well, also he's manipulative in a way, unlike Trump, whose manipulation is all bullying.
Yeah.
Kingpin is like, I will go meet this guy at this fire station because I know that this will make him think that so he's willing to like pretend to have respect for these people to get what he wants.
Yeah.
So,
which if he did say, I like the trucks, that would have been a very Trump thing.
Yes, that would have been very much.
I want to see the trucks.
But it sucks. He doesn't want to do this shit. Like his whole schedule is just like fucking doing garbage all day.
Yeah.
And it's all because everybody hates him. So he has to like go make nice with every single public employee because they all think he's a monster. Again, I like that. Like I like that's part of his thing. Like in the first 100 days, he's got to fucking deal with that.
Yeah.
And so they're driving and he wants to fucking do something because this all feels like bullshit to him. And they come across a giant pothole in the middle of the road. And
I mean, it's not a pothole. It is a sinkhole.
It's a sinkhole. The fucking road is collapsing.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, we're waiting on permits.
There feels like there's something like in the script, it's a pothole, and they got on set and they're like, okay, that pothole's not going to read.
Yeah.
We have to have a hole to the center of the earth over here right now. And he gets out of his car in this traffic jam and he demands that the foreman just go fill the hole right now.
Yeah.
And the foreman said, we're waiting for the permits. There's no way that they're there with the stuff.
No, just standing
There's
on the side?
no way.
No.
Whatever. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, like, it's a good visualization, an action-oriented way of showing us that he's going to be a take charge, cutting through the red tape kind of mayor. And it's good optics, as the name of the episode is, because everybody sees him just stand there and say, no, do this right now. Like, we're not going to wait for the bullshit. And that,
What's-his-face has a good bit. Gandolfini has a good bit where he's like, you don't need to worry about the people in New York. You want the people of Long Island. And that's a good bit right there. That's a good understanding of New York politics.
The problem is the people in Long Island don't vote in New York.
No, he would not be able to be mayor of Manhattan because of Long Island, but that's what he says. So
maybe it's the donors, right? That's
the donors,
and
they'll come out and like support you, I guess.
But. I guess. I mean, I don't know 100%. Only the 5 boroughs can vote for the mayor of New York. Unless he is calling Queens and Brooklyn Long Island. So they
or he might be saying like, okay, you're mayor now. Governor next.
Yeah, that's like the latter.
Yeah.
One of the things that Kingpin does is he has to go to the funeral of the cop who got hit by the train. And he shows up late at the very end of the funeral. And we get the police commissioner who fucking hates his guts.
Yeah.
He is like, he asks him the name. You remember this name of this cop? And King was like, no. He goes, oh, why would you? You just killed him. And I really like that. Again, I like that the premise here is like, oh, this guy is known as a monster.
Yeah. And
that is the actual appeal. So
now keep in mind, by the way, it was a dirty cop.
Yeah. But still,
it is but there is an interesting bit where it's like the police commissioner is like, you got this cop killed. No, this cop got himself killed by beating up some guy and not presenting himself as a cop.
No, yeah. I mean, but like that's what the cops do, man.
Yeah.
The cops take care of themselves. That's
Yeah.
that's
Oh no,
their whole
100%.
deal.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I like that this is how it's being played out.
So the police commissioner is like, hey, so guess what? Like, there was this one mayor in the 1800s who lasted 1 month. My job is to make sure you last less than that. Like, I want you out. Like, I'm not going to fucking put up with you. The police are not going to put up with you. And he leaves Wilson Fisk in the cemetery to like have to figure out what he's going to do next. Meanwhile, Matt goes to the arraignment for Hector Alea, which is his new client, who we know is White Tiger, but Matt doesn't know. And I like this too because the room is full of cops, which is 100% what happens when there's a cop killer.
Yeah.
They just flood the room with cops. And he tries to get him out on bail, but the judge is really not on his side at all and will not even listen to Matt's arguments. I think that's smart narratively because later on they're in the judge's chambers and you are set to think the judge is going to rule against Matt again.
Yeah.
And I think that was good. But so Matt has Cherry looking into this witness, and Cherry kind of doesn't want to do it. It's like the vibe, right? Like he doesn't want to do it.
No, he doesn't want to help a guy who killed a cop.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And he keeps telling Matt, like, I can't, I'm looking, but no such luck. But what
Missed opportunity in this.
What's
scene.
that?
Because they're out by the bay, and Matt picks up some stones and he's throwing them into the water. I wanted just one shot of him like flicking one, and it just kept bouncing.
Yeah.
Like remind us, like, oh, he's got awesome power stuff.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have minded that. But so what happens is that they go to Alea's wife, and she's like not psyched about her husband. She says he's been a different man for the last year, and he's never home and shit like that. And Cherry's there, and he takes this opportunity to go poking around. And this guy keeps his White Panther costume in a wicker basket under his bed.
Well,
that is so funny.
This was, I think, really poorly shot as well. Because they cut to like an over-the-shoulder shot of Cherry, and you can see the box, and then it cuts to a different shot, and Cherry bumps into the box.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Why would you like?" And then he pulls it out. It's like, "Oh, you shouldn't have shown it to us first. We should have bumped into it." The fact that we find it before he does, and we're like, "It's right there." Felt very like Blue's Clues. Like, hey, here's the hint.
So then now Matt knows that he's White Tiger.
Yeah,
and so he goes to speak to his client again. And this time he's been beat up more. He's on Riker Island. They just keep beating him. And Matt's like, listen, I know you're fucking White Tiger. And so you got to be honest with me if I'm going to defend you. He has a very good line, which is if I'm going to win this case, I need to know every way that I can lose this case.
Yes.
Very good line. And then this is the first of two mentions of something that made me so delighted. And then has given me a lot of goodwill towards this program.
Yeah.
Which is that Hector Alea says to him, I wasn't even wearing my magical amulet. And I'm like, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. That's what I want, baby. I want that magical amulet. Because White Tiger's an easy character to just make a karate guy.
Sure. Yeah.
And in the comics, he does have a magic amulet that he wears. And in the Netflix show, I guarantee he would just be a karate guy. Guarantee it. But here he has magic. And so that's what I want, man. I want that. And the show just plays it. And later on, when Matt goes in, the thing of Matt's like, well, if we found this, the cops will find this. Like, there's just no way we can keep this secret. This is going to get out.
You keep it in a box under your bed. It's shocking the cops haven't already ransacked.
I'm actually shocked that they didn't get a search warrant already.
Yeah.
But so he's like, so he goes and runs offense and goes to the judge and says, so here's the deal. My client is White Tiger, but I need this not to be introduced into evidence because it has nothing to do with what happened that night. He wasn't wearing his costume and he wasn't wearing his mystical amulet. And the prosecutor rolls his eyes, but they don't do one of these, come on, a mystical amulet.
No, he rolls his eyes at like this doesn't matter to the case.
Yeah, and I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
Like, I am so happy right now that we don't have to have a fucking argument about whether or not mystical amulets exist.
Yeah.
It's just, everybody's like, oh, fucking mystical amulet. This has really put a whole new fucking dimension on this case.
Yeah.
And the judge does, in fact, rule in Matt's favor and says that they're going to withhold. I can't imagine this is going to stick. I'm curious what the show's going to do with this, because this is the kind of thing that somebody's going to leak to the press.
Yeah.
Like in real life. So I don't know what they're going to do with this on the show. Kingpin, meanwhile, is having a hard time. We see there's a really good subtle bit here where we see him at his desk and his knuckles are all bloody.
Yes.
Who is he? Do you think he was just sparring with wood, or was he beating somebody up, you think?
I'm not sure. This is the scene where his campaign manager comes in and says, do you want to go to the firehouse or have it here? And she looks at his knuckles and they're all cut up. And she, in that moment, she's talking about hey, we need Vanessa to step up more. I think they're trying to set up the idea that she believes that he's beating Vanessa.
That could be the case. But I think that, so maybe this was the first episode when we just missed it, which is that Matt and Fisk have a sit down at a diner.
Yeah.
And I like that scene a lot. I don't think it's really well written.
I do not
really
like that
it's really well acted. And I think that D'Onofrio looks gigantic across the table.
Yes.
From Charlie Cox.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's very well acted. It's funny because one of the things that we discussed on a previous episode was them saying one of the problems with the Netflix show is there's so much talk of everyone just waxing poetic about what is good and what is justice. And then that entire scene is that. And it's you're doing it. You're doing the same
but
bullshit.
I think it really works here because for me, it's establishing the headspace of both these guys, and it's establishing also their parallel journeys.
Yeah.
Because Kingpin is trying to go straight. He wants to be the legitimate mayor of New York.
Yeah.
And Matt doesn't want to be Daredevil anymore. And Kingpin is I get it. When you have a violent nature, and it's hard because it feels really good to let it out.
And there is a bit in there, I can't remember exactly what it said, but there's a bit in there that I feel would not be in the original series, where Kingpin says something funny, and Matt laughs.
Right.
And it's a thing of we despise each other.
Right.
But, all right, that was pretty funny.
Well, there's a nice bit when they sit down and Kingpin's Matt Murdock, I must admit, it's not entirely unpleasant to see you again.
To see you. Okay.
Which I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good relationship for these kinds of adversaries.
Yeah.
To have a little bit of that, we can sit down and talk about it with no cover. This is just the deal. We are in fact, we might be the two most intimate people in each other's lives because of the nature of this antagonism. And so they had this big talk where Matt Murdock is listen, I'm not Daredevil anymore. Which I like too, because Kingpin, by asking about that, is letting him know I could fucking arrest you at any moment with this new vigilante thing. I know that you have this. I could just tell the cops to go to your house. And Matt is I'm going to be keeping an eye on you. And then he asks, who, you or the other guy? And Matt kind of doesn't want to answer because he doesn't want to be Daredevil anymore. But he recognizes that once the Kingpin became the mayor, there's a real sense of fuck.
Yeah, I'm going to be Daredevil.
There's going to be Daredevil shit happening. So I quite like that scene. But I also so Kingpin figures out how to deal with the police commissioner. He calls him to his office, and the police commissioner's hey, so I'm going to resign today. And unfortunately, because of scheduling, I can't give you notice. I'm out at midnight. And oh, by the way, 2,000 cops are going to go with me. And by the way, this, you're fucked. And so Kingpin's sitting there eating this fucking Philly cheesesteak. And he's just talking. And he goes aren't you from Philly? And they has this long conversation about Philly cheesesteak. And I was
he's what's the place we always go? And his assistant's Gino's or whatever. He's yes, but this is from a different place. I like more. And then he moves the sandwich over, and there's a photo of a kid and a woman, and we saw the commissioner's wife earlier, so we know it's not his wife. And it turns out he's got an illegitimate kid.
Yeah, and so, but I like that a lot. Because at first I was oh, we're going to do some kind of villain waxing rhapsodic about what Philly cheesesteak means or whatever.
Yeah.
No, this is just I know where your kid lives, King of Prussia, and I use this cheesecake wrapper to hide the photo until I'm ready to show you the photo.
Yeah.
And so the commissioner's okay, fine, I guess I won't fucking resign. And
but first he's the overtime you wanted. It's not happening.
Yeah, it's this is the compromise I will offer you. The overtime, none. The raise, none. New academy recruits, none.
Yeah,
and then
that's good stuff.
It's really good stuff. That's Trumpy.
Yes,
the bullying. That's Trumpy. And so the commissioner's now been cowed. Because I think also the one part of it is the commissioner knows that maybe he will reveal that he has an illegitimate kid, but he probably also is worried that he will kill the illegitimate kid.
That's what I think it is more, is that he'll kill the kid.
Yeah, that's like, there's like a double whammy on that.
Yeah.
Like for the commissioner.
And this scene also has my favorite line in either of the two episodes, which is after the commissioner walks out and then Kingpin goes, "This sandwich is disgusting."
It's so good.
I love that.
I thought it was so good.
That was so great to me. That he's been sitting there eating it the whole time, and then he's like, "I'm just fucking gross."
It's so great. I thought that was really great.
Yeah, that was a good bit.
So meanwhile, other stuff is happening. Matt is getting more serious with this woman, Heather Glenn, who's a therapist. We see her at a book signing, and there's like a weaselly weird kid in the audience, and like I was like, oh, is he going to kill her? And that's on purpose. Like, they're really playing that.
No, that kid is somebody, for sure.
He's going to be... Do you think
because earlier we saw somebody from behind doing the spray painting of a Kingpin.
You think that's going to be him?
I think it's that kid.
So that's Muse, then?
Yeah.
Okay. Who we know is going to be a villain later
that's
on
my
in the
guess.
series.
That's what's going on.
But within the context of the scene, it felt like... And then it builds up, and then he says, I need your help. Can you... And then you feel like that's the end of the scene. But it's not the end of the scene. The next guy in line is Kingpin's Englishman.
Yes.
And so... He gets the book signed, and then we see again later on, he has a meeting with her. He's in her office, and he's making her sign these NDAs at the wazoo. And at first I was like, oh, is the show telling us that Kingpin is keeping such an eye on Matt Murdock that
he's like checking out the woman who's dating him?
Yeah, and like seeing, and then we see that he's actually coming to her with Vanessa for couples therapy. But I think that still can be that he's going to her because she's Matt Murdock's girlfriend.
It's possible.
Like, that feels reasonable to me, that he knows that, like, the level of, like, seeing a therapist when you're the kingpin of crime who's become the mayor is probably dangerous, because even though technically the therapist can't say anything, you never know.
Yeah.
However, if you know that she is Matt Murdock's girlfriend and that you have a fucking another lever of control here, that might make sense. I mean, it could just be coinkydink.
I think it's just coincidence.
I'm not really sure. It's so weird
We'll
if it's
see.
a coincidence.
I think the name of her book is quite a coincidence.
Which is what?
Living Without Fear.
She does give a whole thing about living with our masks.
Yeah.
So Vanessa and Kingpin begin their therapy, real Sopranos coded. Kingpin like interrupts Vanessa while she's talking, like classic bad husband therapy shit. And we get the kind of the lowdown, like what's been happening. This is like the info dump here, where they kind of explain what's been happening and how everybody feels now.
Well, there's an interesting thing that happens here. Is that Vanessa says he was hurt. He was out of the game for a year. I ran the business myself. In that time, profits were up.
Right. She was better than him at this.
I'm better at it than him. And now he's come back and he's like, we have to stop doing all of that.
Right.
We're going to go do this thing instead. So I don't think he's going legit because he wants to go legit. I think he's going legit becoming the mayor because his ego is bruised.
But we saw that he wanted to go legit before that, though. That's the problem with the Echo thing, is that he wanted to go legit while he still was running the eye patch.
Yes.
So that was like earlier.
Yeah, but that's the feeling I got from this scene.
No, I don't disagree necessarily. That's at least how she feels about it.
Yeah.
I do think it's really great that she mentions that one of the reasons why things are going better is because there's better relations.
Yes.
Like, it's not fear. She's not operating through fear.
No, she says that the workers are doing better because management and the workers have a better communication.
Yeah.
And like all that. I like that stuff.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really good. And yeah, you could see that he potentially is jealous of this, and that's part of what's happening here. So basically the scene ends with Heather Glenn saying, well, why are you here in therapy? And he goes, I don't want to lose my wife. And so I think that Kingpin really means it. Vanessa, as a character that's meaningful to him, has been established for a long time now.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is actually his real reason. That this is not a game. This is not like a head game.
No. In the comics and in the original series of this as well, the Netflix series, it's very clear that he's madly in love with her.
They do specify that he has no kids at one point. He asked Matt Murdock if he has kids, and Murdock says no, and he said, how about you? Is no. Which means that there is no the Rose hanging around waiting to be seen. Kingpin. Although I guess maybe he could have an illegitimate kid.
Possible.
Who becomes the Rose? Were you getting texts here? Did you just get a text from me right now?
Oh, it's from Dad.
Oh, what does he have to say?
How is the transportation going? Everything on time?
He doesn't know that you flew in yesterday.
No?
I mean, why is he asking that now?
I don't know. It's
You've
up
been
to
here,
both of us.
You've been here in LA for
Maybe he thinks that we're on the way to...
No, he knows that today's the show.
Okay.
Well, he knows the show's first. He must think that you're flying in today. Hey, Dad, if you're listening, Derek flew in last night. He's been here almost 24 hours.
Transportation's going well.
So, anyway, meanwhile, Cherry's not doing a good job finding this witness, but Matt Murdock does find him. And Matt
Murdock finds him in my favorite way of ever finding anyone.
Which is what?
Which is, I'm just going to go stand around on different streets until I hear somebody say something that sounds interesting.
No, he's doing a little bit of just like walking, but he's standing in front of the police precinct.
Yes.
So he's waiting for the cops.
But at first he goes to the church and listens in on a sermon without going in, which I think is an important bit.
Well, I think also, though, I think that one of the things, this feels like, for me, a residual Daredevil behavior.
Yes.
Like walking the streets and listening.
Yeah.
Like that's a residual. That's like what Daredevil would do in the rooftops. Like, just, so I think that maybe the idea that he goes in front of the church, hears that sermon, and that makes him think, you know what, I can just do this to find out who this fucking...
But I also think it's a thing...
We have religious thematics.
Christian boy Matt Murdock, he wants to go to church, but he's got too many sins.
Right, he can't go in. So he follows this cop home that he knows is one of the cops that's on the case. And is it the actual cop that was fighting? Or was it a different cop, right?
I don't remember.
So he follows him home. He spends fucking all night listening outside of his house. Finally gets the information that these guys have found. He
definitely heard that guy pooping.
Oh, he heard all kinds. That's one of those things, like you think about what Superman hears all the time. Like you're like, oh man, unpleasant.
Yeah.
So like Superman knows what JD Vance's sounds like when he's coming.
I don't think so.
He definitely does.
No, he'd have to focus in on that.
I mean, but maybe he is focusing on JD Vance and doesn't realize that's what's happening. That JD Vance is like in his like.
Why is he focusing on JD Vance?
Because he's a bad guys.
All right. Yeah. There's a whole storyline in the Bendis Superman run about that, about how like the crime organizations in Metropolis work, and that they all have to have their meetings in lead-lined soundproofed rooms so that Superman doesn't know anything that's going on. And it's really a great little concept.
So he hears them talking on the phone about going to kill the witness, and they know where the witness is. So Matt somehow gets there before the cops. I don't know how he pulls that off.
Daredevil stuff.
Does he? I'm curious.
That's my theories. He goes running. I mean, they don't show it, right? But
well, he also tells Cherry to go to Fort Tryon Park because it's like way uptown where this guy is, and so Fort Tryon Park is the nearest park. So he says, "Cherry, go to Fort Tryon Park. I know where this witness is. I'm going to go." And he goes to the guy's house, and he's like, "You got to go." And the guy's like, "Who the fuck are you?" I really like that too. He's like, "What the fuck?" And sure enough, though, the cops show up immediately, and Matt makes the guy go off on the fire escape and says, "Go to Fort Tryon Park. My guy's going to find you. He's going to bring you to safety."
Which there's a problem. He doesn't know what Matt's guy looks like, and Matt's guy doesn't know what he looks like.
I know, and I think at night, Fort Tryon Park, looking for a shady guy, I feel like, oh well, maybe
you're the guy that Matt sent.
This is the Cruising 2. So the two cops come in. They're like, "We're going to bust down the door," and Matt lets him in, and he stands there, and they walk in, and they see the blind lawyer, and they're like, "Oh, aren't you the lawyer?" And he's like, "Yeah, we're looking for this guy." And he's like, "Well, I don't know where he is. Unfortunately, I'm visually impaired.
I haven't seen him."
Listen, I'm visually impaired. I wish I could help you. And so I was really curious where this scene was going to go, because I was like, okay, what's the deal with these cops? These cops are bad cops. They have tattoos on their wrists.
Yeah, they have Punisher symbol.
Yeah. So, which I'm assuming is going to be how the Punisher gets into this story. I'm assuming.
Yeah. And it's going to take right from the comics. There's a famous bit in the Punisher comics where he goes off on two cops that have like a Punisher logo on their cop car, their squad car.
I don't know. Matt can't know this though, right?
There's no way he knows it. No.
Right. Okay. So it's going to have to come to his attention some other way.
Yeah.
Okay. So the cops are like, fine. And they're going to beat it out of Matt. And then they decide that they're going to shoot Matt. They're like, fuck it. We're just going to kill this guy. And so I also like Charlie Cox's acting here. He's on his knees and they have the gun to his head and he goes, "You don't want to do this." And it is, "You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." Like that's what he's doing. He's doing that. And I like it quite a bit.
Well, he very much so, because he's playing it in a way of like, like, don't make me do this.
Yeah, don't make me do this.
I
Yeah.
like that.
But for those cops, what they're going to hear is, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this, I'm begging for my life.
Yeah.
What we hear is, please, I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Like, do not make me hurt you. I don't want to hurt people anymore. And so they're about to shoot him, and Matt and really destroys these guys. To the point where one of these guys, he compound fractures the one guy's arm. Very fucked up. And at one point, there's a question among the Discord and among many people out there is, did Matt Murdock murder one of the cops by breaking his neck? Because it does have that feel.
I think until we see the next episode, I took it, I was like, oh man, he just killed that guy.
He might have just paralyzed him.
I don't know if that's really better.
I mean, he's a Punisher dirty cop. I don't feel that bad about him getting paralyzed.
No. But for Matt himself, his actions.
My argument's going to be that he got his collarbone broken and his shoulder separated. That's going to be the argument that they're going to come up with if they circle back around to this. The other guy, he slams him so hard into a refrigerator, his whole face explodes in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And I mean, Matt just beats the shit out of them. And I was thinking about this. I was like, this is actually, he could just do this because the cops will say, like, I got beat up, and they're going to say, who did it? The blind lawyer.
Yeah. I was like, what?
Give me a break,
Come
man.
on.
Like, give me a fucking break. Why are you lying like this? But he does beat, like, really badly beats these guys. And there's like a lot of pent-up shit that's coming out here, And then that's the end of the second episode. I think we got most of the main beats from these. Do we miss anything important in these two episodes?
BB interviews Kingpin.
She doesn't ask any questions. She says something to him, and then she goes, and he gets mad, and she goes, one more question. I'm like, you didn't have one question?
No. Because she comes in, and he's like, she's like, BB York. And he's like, what does BB stand for? Betty? Barbara? And she's like, just BB. I'm named after my uncle. And he goes, Ben Urich. A good reporter. I miss him. Or whatever he says.
The writers miss him.
The writers wish he hadn't been killed. But, because he killed him. Kingpin killed him.
Yeah.
And then she asked something, right? She asked, like...
She talks about Vanessa.
She asked a question about Vanessa. But she doesn't ask.
She talks about Vanessa, I think.
I thought she I don't remember.
And she also gives him a whole thing about the police, that if he loses the police, he loses the city.
Yeah.
Which I think is what makes him actually do the Philly cheesesteak thing, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And Michael Gandolfini's trying to fuck her, and he thought that he could impress her by bringing her. I like that, by the way. Like, as a little character story, be like, how does she get in front of Kingpin? Well, because this guy wants to fuck her.
This guy wants to bang her, yeah. Now, there is one big problem.
What's that?
Before they enter the room, Gandolfini takes her phone.
Yes.
Does not give it back to her when she leaves.
Well, he's doing that on purpose because he wants an excuse to see her again.
Oh, there you go.
He's a player. See, that's the thing. He knows what he's doing.
Smart.
She's so upset that she doesn't even realize, but he's a player. That's, I think, most of the main big beats in these two episodes. We've been talking for over an hour about it. That feels pretty okay. But you didn't like them, right?
Nope.
Talk about why you didn't like them.
I feel like the same as with the Netflix show. I feel like it's trying too hard to be edgy and tough, and I find that tiresome. I am outstandingly amazed that they do not bother to try and explain anything from the previous.
No, it's amazing, isn't it?
Like in my mind, I was like, they're not like there's 3 seasons of Daredevil that ended 5-6 years ago, whenever it was. And you're not going to try and recap any of this? And then, as you pointed out on this, there's also Hawkeye and Echo.
Yeah.
And they're not discussing any of these things. That's crazy.
And like the big villain reveal at the beginning of the first episode is a guy in a black ski mask. Like, I mean, like, even if you watch the original show, there was a reasonable chance. I mean, that's why they have him hit the moth with the paperclip.
Yeah.
But there's still a reasonable chance that a regular person who watched those
you
shows
have no idea.
Wait, what is that guy?
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
And they just jump right in. Like, it's like, hey, it's been, the summer, season 3 ended. There was a summer hiatus and now we're back. Like, they jump in like that. And it's like real weird. A lot of the stuff episode 2 looks better than episode 1, but a lot of stuff in both episodes, I think, looked very cheap.
Which is, again, crazy. They're doing location shooting. I mean, that's the craziest part. They're shooting on the streets of New York City.
Yeah.
That is so much production value right there.
Yeah.
And very often it looks bad.
Yeah. Which is pretty shocking.
Yeah.
And the acting's good. The writing's okay. It's still a little too much monologue-y at times. I get annoyed by that. Um, as far as we can tell, Daredevil is still a bad fighter. Like that fight with Bullseye, he just getting the shit kicked out
But
of
he
him.
does ruin those two cops.
He does ruin those two cops.
I think it's okay he gets shit kicked out of him in the Bullseye fight because that, again, is establishing a arch nemesis thing.
Yeah.
And I think that him killing both Foggy and then beating the shit out of Matt, I think does help establish that feeling of super arch nemesis.
Yeah.
Like the guy that you should be afraid of showing up on the program.
I'm a little surprised. I guess maybe they did this in the original series since he has the vibranium spine or whatever, that they're not going to do the bit from the comics where Bullseye is paralyzed and Matt goes to see him and they play Russian roulette, because that is like one of the classic issues.
I mean, they might have.
They might have done it in the other one.
So I didn't watch season 3, but somebody told me that the end of season 3 has Bullseye getting the surgery.
Okay,
so we're picking up later from that.
Yeah,
is my understanding. See, I actually disagree. So I did not much like the first episode. There was a lot of problems I had with the first episode. Although once they killed Foggy, I was like, okay, I'm really going to give this a real shot. Like because I find him so unbearable.
Yeah,
like on a super deep level. And
nothing personal. The actor is annoying to me.
Yeah, Lord Hansen. He was in something. He was in Killer of the Flower Moon.
Yes,
and he's not that annoying there.
I think he's got like one line though. Right?
That is true. Oh, the garbage truck's back. Yeah, that is true. But he's less annoying. There's just something about.
I mean, the way he's written on the Netflix show.
That's the thing. He's the character sucks
because he's, and I would almost guarantee this. He's in an episode of Psych that is a play on Friday the 13th, and in that episode, he's this annoying like nerdy guy, and to the point at one point he makes like a reference to like a WrestleMania match from like 1983 or whatever, and the main guy in Psych turns to him and goes, "Really? That reference is what you're going with?" And everything in the Netflix show, I feel like that's how everyone should be responding to him all the time with everything he says. And I don't know, he's horribly annoying on the Netflix show.
Classic Psych reference.
Oh, I'll fit it in
here on this show. Classic.
You know that's reference.
Right. So I was happy when he died. I feel like it's not as edgelordy as the Netflix show. And the reason why I feel that is it feels more like a crime show to me. And so the fact that there is a legal case that is now becoming central to the story, so that stuff grows out of that naturally. So if you're doing a crime story, it's going to naturally have grim and gritty elements to it.
But there's a level of the amount of times they say fuck that it's like, we get it, you can say fuck.
I think it's just 2.
No, they say it like 4 times in one scene.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. Because it stood out to me. I was like, all right,
I don't think that's the case. I think actually maybe that I can think of one off the top of my head. Heather Glenn says it. I thought it was a really out of place fuck, frankly. Like it sounded like somebody who doesn't say fuck trying to say fuck in a sentence. But I don't remember other fucks.
I remember there being a scene where there's a bunch of them, and I was like, I get it. You can do this, I guess. You're trying to show.
Maybe. Anybody at home counting the fucks? Let us know. Because I don't feel like there was that many fucks. They could also do that on Netflix, by the way.
Oh, they do on Netflix, but on Netflix too, it always felt like a thing of like, see, we're not like other superhero stuff.
Yeah, I guess I don't really mind the swearing at this point, or whatever it is, what it is. I felt that you had a big problem with him not being Daredevil for the 2 episodes. I don't have a problem with that. I would had a problem with that in advance, but then I think within the context, it's a character story, and so that's okay with me. Like he is Daredevil. It's just he's not putting the costume on, and that to watch the show where he returns to the persona, I'm okay with that because it is not one of these things like where he has to learn to wear a suit and an outfit or like finally comes up with an outfit. The outfit is there. It's calling to him like the Green Goblin mask in No Way Home. So I like that about this character story because I think that he gives weight to the idea of this double life and the weight that it has on Matt, where he doesn't necessarily want to be the guy that fucking breaks people's legs in alleys, but also can't help himself being the guy who breaks people's legs in alleys. And so it's going to be very interesting. I also think I like it when in a story like this, when the idea of becoming the superhero is maybe the bad ending.
Okay.
I'm not against that. Do you know what I mean? This is not one of those things where it's like, oh, we're waiting for him to blossom into heroism. We're waiting for him to return to his old ways.
Yeah.
We're waiting for him to relapse into Daredevil. And I'm okay with that because, again, it feels motivated within the story. It doesn't feel like we're embarrassed of the suit. The first scene of the show has him in the suit. Like, it's right off the bat.
Yeah.
And it's full of real superheroes.
It should have been, by the way, it should have been the She-Hulk suit. I would have liked that.
I would have liked that too. We know the She-Hulk suit is in the show.
Yes.
So that will show up. I would have liked that too, but at the same time, I think that might have been a little too much for a show that to bring in a fourth television show that you needed to have watched to understand what's happening on this program might have been a little.
But
much.
I don't think you like him having a different suit. I don't think you need another show to explain. But
the thing is, I like the suit. It's corny as shit, and there's a reason why he got rid of that suit in the comics very early.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so I think that especially also in that scene, I can't imagine like his best friend is murdered
and he's wearing this mustard
yellow suit. Like I just don't know if that really works. I'm glad they didn't put him in the fucking sweatpants.
Yeah.
Because that would have been easy. Like he hasn't been Daredevil my take was he hadn't been Daredevil for a minute, and so he maybe just puts on like a thing over his face. And they didn't do that. They put him in the full fucking suit. We got a full Daredevil sequence. And again, with the swinging and the jumping and all that stuff.
Where do you think the suit was?
They're not that far from their office. Maybe it's in his office.
Maybe.
But also, I don't mind that either because that's actually part of the
superhero that's classic
suit.
Superhero stuff.
Now I got a superhero suit on.
Like we've seen it a billion times where they just take off their shirt and they're wearing this armored suit underneath it. Like it's like what? Really?
Well, I feel like by killing Foggy in the beginning, I feel like Matt's thing is really well motivated, and I like that the show jumps a year and doesn't wallow in it. Matt is now working a good job, doing well. And it's not one of these things where we pick up a year later, he's drinking himself into oblivion. He's like throwing himself into work. And I like that. I like that a lot. That makes it feel less edgelordy to me, that he now has stuff to lose again.
Yeah.
Like he has like a real career. He has maybe really helping people. I think that's really, really terrific. And I also, again, I like the idea that like by the end of the second episode, we see the Kingpin backsliding into Kingpin shit. And then that's also technically, although I want him see him be bad, that's the worst possible outcome for him because he doesn't want to be that guy anymore. And so again, that's what I like about these two episodes, that it's this journey these guys are both on back into being guys who are going to be fighting each other on top of a roof or something like that. And for both of them, it's the last thing they want. And I like that. So again, when it's a show like where it's the Surf Dracula thing, where you got to wait the whole first season for Surf Dracula to surf, it's more like Surf Dracula, The Next Generation, where Surf Dracula has given up drinking blood, and we're going to spend a lot of time getting him back to drinking blood.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of okay with that.
To me, it's more like Dark Knight Returns. We spend the whole first issue of Dark Knight Returns with him being like, "I'm not doing that anymore. I'm done with that." Blah blah blah. And then at the end, he comes jumping out in the costume. Right? We are now 2 hours into this, essentially, hour 40 minutes, whatever. I don't think he's going to be Daredevil by the end of the next episode.
He is by episode 4. He is.
That's my guess. Is episode 4.
Apparently that's the case. Apparently,
yeah. Okay, so that's what I was thinking. It was episode 4. He'll finally get into it, and it's like,
is this a 12-episode season?
I thought it was 8 episodes.
They announced air dates for 8s, but I thought there were more than that. But I'm really confused because this was announced as a 19-episode thing originally, and so that got changed when they broke it up into 2 seasons.
9 episodes.
9. So we'll be almost halfway-ish.
Yeah.
But we'll be like at the end of Act 1, essentially. If we're looking at those 9 episodes as a 3-act structure, we'll be at the beginning of Act 2, I guess. He becomes Daredevil again. That doesn't seem crazy to me.
That seems crazy to me that you need 3 to 4 hours to get your character to costume.
How many issues is Dark Knight Returns?
4 issues.
And he spends 1/4 of it not being Batman?
Yeah.
That's not that different. It's 1/3 instead of 1/4. But like it's a pretty intense amount.
Dark Knight Returns is also not 9 hours long.
But I'm saying when it's 9 hours long, that's why you have to look at it as each issue, that whole thing expanded out to 9 hours. We're talking about 1/4. If we expanded the Dark Knight Returns out to 9 hours, that means was 1/4. It's going to be 2.5 hours before he becomes Batman.
Nah, that would be terrible. That would be so annoying.
I don't mind it because again, he is Daredevil, and they keep talking about it. Like it's again not one of those things where it's like we're going to get there. He is there, and he just doesn't want to be there anymore. And I really dug that. Now, I did not like the first episode, and I had a really hard time, and I put off watching the second episode because I didn't like the first episode at all. The second episode I really liked.
The second episode I liked better. I like the Kingpin stuff.
But I like also that he's a lawyer for a vigilante. Like, I love that.
Yes.
Like, once that became, like, the motivation for him to be doing stuff, I was like, great. Like, this is what I want. This is what I want out of the show.
Yeah.
We could say we want case of the week. I don't mind one case over the course of the season.
Sure.
If it's going to be, like, investigated on the level that this is currently being investigated.
Yeah.
Because they do investigation here. They do actual stuff. So I really appreciated that. So the second episode left me really hopeful for what comes next. Because, again, the first episode really... I was like, this looks like it's Canadian. It's so ugly. Some of the editing is really shitty in that first episode. And by the end of episode 2, I just was much more on board. And so I think it's, again, one of these things like where they do a 2-part premiere. And you're like, okay, I get it. Like, I get why. Because by the end of episode 2, he may not be in the Daredevil costume, but he is 100% back in Daredevil headspace after that beating shit out of those cops. And that really worked for me. So I will say that episode 2 is maybe my favorite episode, other than the Punisher tying him to the chimney episode of Daredevil.
That's a good episode.
This is like my second favorite episode of Daredevil out of the 2 and change seasons that I have seen of the program. So,
no, I will say the first episode of this is my favorite episode of Daredevil because it starts with Foggy Nelson getting killed.
I mean, it really is delightful, man.
Yeah.
It is. I was kind of hoping his head would go, but I do get the whole chest wound, the sucking chest wound, because that allows Matt to listen to him die.
Yeah.
And that makes it like way worse.
And it's a good reminder that he sucks. So.
Oh, man. All right. We will be back again next week with episode 3 of Daredevil. Just one this time. And probably be a more traditional breakdown because I'll have stuff in front of me. What else did I want to say? Do you remember what I wanted to say?
No.
Did I tell you what I wanted to say?
Nope.
Yeah, I didn't think I did. So join us for that next week. We'll be back on separate cameras next time. So enjoy this while you have it. The two of us side by side. Anyway, I'm hoping that I keep liking the show or liking it as much as I like the second episode, which again, I don't know that I would keep watching the show past episode 3 if I wasn't doing a podcast on it, but I'm not dreading episode 3 right now. There's enough good actors and there are storylines that I think are interesting that make me go, okay, I'm curious to see where this goes now. I'm curious to see where they take this.
Okay.
So I'm not dreading it. I might be dreading it by episode 5.
Yeah.
But like episode 2 was enough of a bump in quality for me to say, okay, I get it. They had to reshoot the whole fucking program. They were not in the best circumstances, possibly. So let's take it from here.
I would love to see the original footage.
I am really curious. I mean, I'm assuming Karen dies in that same scene.
I think so.
That would make sense, right? He just killed
that was the rumor, was that they both were killed, right?
And the fact that she's written out of the show essentially right quickly, now. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure she's obviously going to come back, but that they got her out of the city indicates that they had a lot of stuff that was written already that was not going to have any Karen space.
Yeah.
Especially the Heather Glenn.
Yes.
Like they couldn't do that with Karen running around.
No.
It wouldn't be the same thing.
No, because, I mean, they clearly... I don't think the overall storyline of the season has changed, right? It was just like, these episodes are not working. We're going to keep the same storyline. Mayor, new girlfriend, new partner and whatnot. But we got to rework. Supposedly the episodes are too funny.
That's what Liefeld said, but I don't know that I believe that.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that I believe that. Rob, God love him, is on a real anti-Marvel kick right now.
Yes.
And so I am not 100% ready to be sure that that's correct. But maybe he's right. He obviously knows a lot of stuff. But he is very anti-Marvel at the moment.
He's like 2 out of the last 3 episodes of this podcast is about Kevin Feige blowing it. So it's very interesting.
Anyway, we'll see you guys again next week. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be well, but most of all, may you remain a true believer.